Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today because the defendant, Brooke Richardson, murdered a baby that she didn't want and never intended to keep.
She's a great student. She started doing competitive cheer outside of the school.
Skylar has just learned she's pregnant and she tells no one. Nobody knows about this.
Sometime when her mother, father, and brother were asleep, Skylar delivers a baby girl. She names her daughter Annabelle. And then she buries the remains in the backyard.
He did give birth to a newborn infant. He caused the death of that infant. She subsequently burned the infant.
They were on a one-way track to get her to confess so they could take her to jail.
Are you going to put me in jail because of that?
People were ready to convict. There was false information everywhere. It was ugly.
She was determined to keep her secret.
Skylar, if they do an autopsy on the baby and they find out that it was living at the time of the birth, then you will go to jail. I never meant to kill my baby.
Okay, your wife is in a bar. You said she's unresponsive.
This is what he's going to tell you.
How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything? We, the jury, and to find the defendant.
Small town USA, it's a pretty tight-knit community.
Carlisle is in the southwest corner of Ohio. It's a town of subdivision. A lot of people that grow up in Carlisle don't leave.
A little bit of rural on the outskirts and not really large.
This is where the Richardson family lives in Carlisle. Kim, son Jackson, Scott, and their daughter Skylar.
She's a great student, National Junior Honor Society. She started doing competitive cheer outside of the school. That's what she really enjoyed. She's just
a peacemaker.
Yeah, peacemaker.
By all appearances, she was happy-go-lucky.
But appearances, as always, can be deceiving.
I noticed she was constantly looking at herself in the mirror. She was counting every calorie that she ate. The day that she said she couldn't get a pack of gum because it had 5 calories per piece, that really hit home. Her eating disorder defines her.
We had taken her to several different places. We tried several different things. It was extremely frustrating.
She did not develop at all, mentally or physically. She stayed frozen in that 12-year-old body.
But she is a popular student and sexually active, first with a boy named Trey, and then a new friend, Brandon.
In the spring, I noticed that they were getting very close, and that's when I had encouraged her to get on the pill. That's when I made her appointment for her to go to the doctor. I went with her. I sat in the lobby. She went back by herself. When she came out, I could tell that she had been crying, but I wouldn't say that she was horribly shaking or upset. I could just tell that she'd been crying. She kept everything a secret. She always has.
Skylar's secret this time is a big one. She is 8 months pregnant, weeks away from giving birth.
Skylar did not want to have to deal with her mother's wrath during her pregnancy and thought that she could get through school and then tell her mom that she was pregnant and then have a normal delivery process.
I absolutely had no idea.
I just thought that she'd gained weight.
Skylar believed that she had time. Most teenagers are naive. They put out of mind what they think they can do the next day or the next week, and they just live in that moment.
And her high school senior prom was just 9 days away.
Skylar was very excited about prom, to be going with Brandon. First time she had had someone that she really cared about to go to prom with. We always go out to a little shop in Columbus. They have a great selection of dresses. She knew she wanted red. She hadn't had a red one before. It had a lace corset in the back. He loved it.
But Skylar's mom is worried she has put on weight and might not fit in the dress.
I always get stressed out because if her hair's not right, you know, with girls, they've got hair, nails, makeup, the whole thing. She wasn't exactly happy with herself, but she never is.
Prom night is a disaster.
It's supposed to be the perfect night, but she's having major cramping. And she's even mentioned it to Brandon that she has the worst cramps she's ever had.
Skylar is in a lot of pain at prom because she's in labor and still just plows through and goes forward with it.
Skylar keeps her secret from everyone. And then the next night, back home, Skylar makes a decision that will change her life forever.
Sometime when her mother, father, and brother were asleep, Skylar delivers a baby girl. She says she delivers it in the bathroom on the toilet.
I mean, I still can't believe that none of us woke up.
She says the umbilical cord is not attached, the baby is not breathing, it doesn't have a heartbeat.
I have no doubt it was a stillborn. There's no way that we wouldn't have heard or the dogs wouldn't have reacted or something.
And then takes the baby down the stairs into the garage, gets a garden trowel.
She names her daughter Annabelle, and then she buries the remains in the backyard.
It was very, very hard knowing that she had her own private funeral for Annabelle in the backyard.
Much later that day, Skylar sends a text and a photo to her mother from the gym. "My belly is back." And to her boyfriend, Brandon, saying she's so happy, without explaining why.
And she tells no one, not her mom, not her brother, who's her best friend, not any of her girlfriends, certainly not her father. Nobody knows about this.
But this would be a secret that would not keep. Two months after burying baby Annabelle in her backyard, Skylar returned to the doctor's office for more birth control pills, where of course she was asked what happened to the baby.
Skylar Richardson had gone there for a follow-up appointment and told the doctors while she was there that she had delivered a baby that was not breathing and that she had subsequently buried her in the residence of her backyard.
The Warren County Sheriff's Office begins to investigate.
You can have a seat right there and on the other side, and we'll come in just a couple minutes, okay?
Skylar is brought by her father to the police station for questioning by Detectives John Fain and Katie Gee.
As I was driving up there, I thought there might be some other explanation, or probably something happened other than there was truly going to be the remains of a newborn infant in the backyard of the residence.
I said, "Can I be in there with her?" He said, "No, she's 18, we have to talk to her alone." I said, "Does she need an attorney?" "Oh, absolutely not. She's not in any trouble." Naively thinking that, why would a police officer lie to you?
But Detective Fain begins by giving Skylar her Miranda rights.
Can you read this part out loud for me, just that last paragraph?
I have read the statement of my rights and I fully understand what my rights are. I do not want a lawyer at this time and am willing to speak with law enforcement officers.
If you're okay, then just sign right there. There's no way other than just to come out and say, okay, we got a call from the doctor's office.
Now Skylar knows her secret is out.
My parents are going to kill me. I didn't want to tell them. I didn't want to tell them at all. I still don't really want to tell them, but now they're going to know.
Without prompting, she says she did not harm her baby, something she will repeat more than a dozen times.
I didn't kill the doll.
Oh, we're not saying anything like that. That's not why you're here today. We're not saying that. Did you say her? Okay, it was a girl. What do you do then?
I stayed there with her for a little bit. I tried to see if maybe she'd wake up, but I had to bury her, and I think that's... Am I going to be in trouble for that? I know it wasn't right.
For trying to see if she could
breathe, and then I had to bury her.
Why do you decide you have to bury her?
I couldn't tell anybody.
Because you hadn't told anybody and you still didn't want to tell anybody?
It got really bad. I loved her. I didn't mean any harm to her.
It's not for us to say.
Are you going to put me in jail because of that?
No, I'm not. That's not why I'm here today to try to put you in jail. We're still just trying to find out what happened, okay? Did you know where you would bury her?
I just wanted to bury her in my backyard, so pick about flowers on her.
Okay.
At this point, had no idea what was going on.
Can I talk to my parents?
In just a minute, but I've got to step up just real quick and take a phone call now.
Oh, honey, just take a deep breath, okay? I'm gonna stand here with you, okay?
Detective Vane finally comes out and tells us sort of a synopsis of what happens. We're in shock.
I just checked out. I couldn't feel my body. I have very little memory of what transpired.
Just be honest, what's gonna happen?
I don't know, okay? I'm in here observing.
Jail?
No. You're not going to jail today. No.
No, and I'm not going to.
Just relax, okay? Listen, just relax, okay?
I don't want to go to jail.
I know you don't. Just relax,
I don't have to go to jail though, right?
Listen, I understand that you're sorry, and I understand that you're upset, and I understand that you didn't want this to happen, okay? Just take some deep breaths, okay? Everything's gonna be okay.
I don't have to go to jail.
You're not going to jail. Okay, we're not taking you to jail today. You're not going to jail, okay? So just...
What's the worst that's going to happen to me?
Honey, I don't know. This isn't my case, okay? He's talking. He just wants to get some things straightened up so that we can figure out exactly what happened. Are you being 100% honest with him? Okay.
I just want everybody to believe me because I don't want to be in trouble.
I understand.
He says you can go back and talk to her. Doesn't tell us that we're on camera being recorded.
I know. I mean, kids get pregnant every day. Pregnancy is not the end of the world.
I'm so sorry.
What did they tell you?
I think they want to know if I killed it myself.
Yeah, you'll go to jail.
I didn't though.
Can you imagine the absolute horror that we just went through not knowing what's going on?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, we can't fix this. There's nothing
You go to
we can
jail.
do.
It's in the papers. It's everywhere. The neighbors have already called me, and I know she was telling me that they're digging up stuff in her backyard. You're going to be on the news. I am supportive, but I'm just saying. Skylar, if they do an autopsy on the baby and they find out that it was living at the time of the birth, then you will go to jail.
I know I will.
The Richardsons' backyard is now a crime scene.
It was a nightmare. They had drones over our house.
The news people camped out all night.
Detective Fane got a search warrant to dig up the infant's remains, which had been decomposing for some 9 weeks.
It was a lengthy process, but we had recovered all the remains. So the coroner's office had time also to conduct an examination of the remains of what they had left.
And the county coroner reports to the detectives that a forensic anthropologist observed charring on Annabelle's bones, suggesting a more sinister motive.
I said, how certain is she? He said, she is absolutely and 100% certain that these bones were burned.
It is the turning point in the case, and Skylar is brought back for what would be a pivotal round of questioning.
I was told it was only going to be a few minutes. Kim and I are sitting outside.
With Detective Brandy Carter joining Fane for the session.
And I'm just going to be honest, I don't know how to say it any other way than we know there was more that happened, okay, than what you and I talked about the other day.
Skylar's lawyer, Charles Rickers.
Skylar holds the hand of the female officers in the room. She did not have a lawyer, her mom and dad weren't present, and she frankly thought that the police were there to help her.
And under questioning, Skylar is about to admit something she had repeatedly denied before, that the baby was born alive.
You knew I didn't get the truth, and you still had to carry that weight with you.
I'm so sorry.
Is it possible that she maybe breathed a little bit, like maybe, before?
Maybe.
Okay.
That's what you do with her.
I put her in the towel.
Okay. Okay. Do you feel like she was breathing when you were holding her and you held her too tight? Okay. I know. It's okay. It's okay. You can't. It's okay. You were trying.
I think I'm going to kill her.
Okay. Okay.
When she just interjects out of the blue, I think I might have killed her. I squeezed her too tight. Detective Carter and I were a little bit taken back by that because we hadn't asked her that, but she just offered that up on her own. What's going through my head right at that moment is that she admitted to killing her baby.
And the detectives seek to leave no room for doubt.
I so hard. I did like that so hard, but just like I just want her to go.
You think that's when she died?
It seemed now like I was speaking with someone who had done the crime that we were there for and was guilty and knew they were guilty. So now I know I'm going to ask questions about signs of life.
Did you hear anything like little gurgle sounds? You know, like they'll kind of make a gurgle sound?
I asked about gurgling, which was a word I introduced. Skylar had not used that word herself.
But it soon became Skylar's word.
She let out a noise.
Maybe noise. What kind of noise?
Maybe a little noise, a gurgle, but I didn't know if it was something else. And then I didn't hear another one.
So how do you know the baby was alive just a little bit, that Annabelle was alive a little bit?
I saw her arm maybe a little bit moving on.
They had what they needed.
Skylar had admitted to maybe accidentally killing her baby. I know at this point there's going to be an arrest that day.
She did give birth to a newborn infant. She caused the death of that infant. She subsequently burned the infant and buried the infant in the backyard of her own residence.
But the prosecutors and detectives were about to learn there would be a serious problem with what happened inside this interrogation room.
This case was a false confession.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Law and Crime. 20-year-old Brooke Skylar Richardson is facing aggravated murder, manslaughter, child endangerment, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse charges in connection with the death of her baby, Annabelle.
It became a news media feeding frenzy, known as the case of the high school cheerleader baby killer.
You're describing a spoiled, self-entitled teenager who was more worried about vanity than keeping the life of a baby alive. That sounds really horrible.
Those are your words.
It took the life out of Skylar to hear those people say all those horrible things about
That she
her
knew wasn't
that
true.
she knew wasn't true.
And much of the public outrage grew out of the allegation that Skylar Richardson had burned the remains of her baby daughter.
That's when we find out how bad this has gotten.
The details were so horrific. Did she not just kill her infant, but she burned the remains?
The burning issue is what caused the prosecutor to indict Skylar for an aggravated murder.
And again, it was something that Skylar seems to admit in her second interrogation with Detectives Fain and Carter, after first repeatedly denying anything to do with burning.
Tell me about the fire.
What fire?
It seemed to be a genuinely surprised reaction when we asked about the fire.
There's some evidence to show that there was some burning on her.
Didn't burn her? I promise on anything I didn't burn her. My dad has lots of bonfires, but I didn't burn her.
There was some charring and stuff on some of her bones, so.
I didn't burn her.
Are you sure?
I swear on anything.
You're sure?
That I'm sure of. I'm sure of.
Clearly, when they said something to her about burning, she had no idea what they were talking about.
Skylar was sobbing almost uncontrollably, and the detectives continued to press her on the burning, because just before they began the interrogation, the county coroner had told Lieutenant Fain that was the finding of their forensic anthropologist, Dr. Elizabeth Murray.
He met us there and we're in the hallway just outside the door, and he just wanted to make sure we were certain and clear on the information that the baby's remains had been set on fire.
So the doctors know that there was fire of some sort or some kind of burning. They know for certain.
So now that I know that I have that, I'm going to be more direct with questions about the fire, and yes, I am looking to get an admission on that part.
There's still a lot more that we don't know that we just want. You're so close. Just give us all the truth that's left.
I've given you all the truth I told you about Squeeze. I think.
Detective Carter said something about cremating her. Did you possibly try to cremate her?
So I wonder if maybe it just was one of those things where you just thought, well, maybe I can do this, and because I think like a cremation, like I'm gonna have some ashes that I can keep of my daughter and keep them.
At one point, Skylar finally said, I think I might have tried to cremate her a little bit.
Where'd you put her? No, I mean like before the lighter. Where was she? Okay, and then where?
Grab the shovel.
Okay. Well, so was she? So you're holding her, and then you grab the shovel and the lighter. Was it like one of those camping lighters, or was it just like a cigarette lighter, like a clicker with a long thing?
Like the long one you go.
Okay. So where do you take her to try to cremate her? You think? Trying to remember like where.
Yeah, she was in there.
In the hole? So you dug the hole first. Okay. And then you put her in the hole?
I guess I just.
Part of the remains, like did you start like at the bottom, at the top? It is what it is. You can't change it, Skylar.
We're not.
You're just.
I'm scared I'm afraid.
You are telling us what happened. Nothing's going to change what happened, okay? But your intention was to try to cremate her. So what part did you try to light?
We were relentless, for lack of a better word. During that second interview, we asked over and over until she admitted to the fire.
How big would you describe the fire? Would you say big? Would you say small? Was it tall? Was how like?
Yeah, I don't remember.
How far up did it go? Like was it like shin? Like if you want to use like your forearm, was it like this far up? Was it this far up? Do you know how far up the fire went? Okay. What about to her? Like chest area, stomach?
Maybe. I'm going to try to get it out.
What made you decide you wanted to get it out? Was she moved?
There was only one problem with this tearful confession of a burning baby, as detectives would later learn.
During the time in between the arrest and this trial, Dr. Murray recanted her initial observation. She no longer saw burning.
Many months later, when she takes her time, she admits her mistake, but it was too late. The prosecutor had already indicted Skylar for aggravated murder.
I remember being completely dumbfounded because one thing about the forensic pathologists and scientists, they work in certainties. I was shocked at how that kind of mistake could be made.
Under aggressive questioning, Skylar Richardson had confessed to something that the doctor no longer said had happened.
And without Dr. Murray allegedly being so certain, we never would have done that. I thought this could blow this case for us and at a minimum make it an uphill battle for the prosecutors.
Yet even with serious questions about whether Skylar Richardson had been coerced into making a false confession, prosecutors were confident they had the evidence to convict her at trial.
All rise. On the court of town session, the Honorable Judge Oda presiding. Remain seated.
Case number 2017 CR 33292. We are now going to hear the opening statements. Mr. Knippen, you may proceed.
Steve Knippen is the first assistant prosecutor in Warren County.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today because the defendant, Brooke Richardson, murdered a baby that she didn't want and never intended to keep. She continued to lie and conceal this pregnancy because no one was ever going to find out about the truth of her pregnancy. She didn't start prenatal care. She didn't look at baby clothes, cribs, diapers, bottles. And she didn't research how to give her child up for adoption. She did nothing.
And Knippen told the jurors they should accept Skylar's words from the interrogation as the truth of what happened.
During this interview, Brooke admitted the following: that her daughter was alive for approximately 5 minutes. She saw her daughter's arms moving a little.
I saw her arms maybe a little.
Heard her gurgle and heard her cry.
What is the noise?
Maybe what kind of noise?
Maybe a little noise.
In just hours, After putting her daughter in the ground, she documented her feelings about exactly what was going through her head at that time. I'm literally speechless with how happy I am.
We were there for every minute of it. It was very difficult to listen to and portray her in the worst possible manner. It was just horrible.
All right, Mr. Rickers, you may proceed.
This case comes down ultimately to the interrogations. Whether or not the police put words in Skylar's mouth, whether or not the statements Skylar made were true or possible. Now, what is not possible is a child catching on fire by touching it with a lighter. It is not possible. Babies are 80% water.
And Rickers tells the jury about someone who will not be testifying at the trial, the forensic anthropologist, who mistakenly told police the baby's remains had been burned.
Her name is Dr. Murray, and you're not going to hear from her. They're not going to call her to the stand. Dr. Murray rushes. She admits that she rushes. She says the bones are burned. The bones are charred. This doctor, many weeks later, said I was wrong. She told the prosecutor's office I was wrong. She said, I ain't gonna lie to them and I ain't gonna lie for them. This case is about a rush to judgment. And it's all about that second interrogation. It's the whole case. Now they suggest Skylar hid her pregnancy because she is evil, because she had this sinister premeditated plan to kill a child. Skylar was a gentle, loving, kind individual who had problems would not hurt an insect, let alone being mean to a human being or a murderer.
When the prosecution called Skylar's boyfriend, Brandon, to testify, he invoked an Ohio law that courtroom cameras could not show his face.
I want to direct your attention to May 7th at 10:54 a.m. And would you agree that's you saying, good morning, beautiful babe?
Yes.
And she responds back, good morning, my amazing boy.
Yeah.
When she responded back, good morning, my amazing boy, at 10:42 a.m., did you know that she had just buried a baby several hours prior?
No.
And her response to you at 11:45:11 on May 7th is, I'll tell you all about it later, but last night was just like the worst ever, and I didn't go to sleep till 5:30. But I feel so much better this morning. I'm happy. Did you have any idea at that time what she was referring to when she said it was the worst night ever?
No.
At some point, you did start questioning her about who the father was. Do you recall that? And she responded back, that guy, Trey, I used to date, who I never talk about. I'm so sorry for lying and for not telling you in the first place. I am so sorry. Please forgive me eventually. I'm so sorry. At your age, it had to have been pretty hard learning everything that was going on and knowing that all of that had been kept from you.
Yeah.
In the end, the outcome of the case would come down to the interrogation of Skylar Richardson and the testimony of the detective who led the questioning.
Sir, would you please state your name?
John Fain, spelling of the last name is F-A-I-N-E. I'm retired now, but it's a case I will definitely never forget.
Detective Fain would testify for 2 days about the interrogation, trying to defend and explain the techniques he used.
Sir, there were several times in that interview where you told her that you didn't believe that she purposely killed her baby. Do you remember hearing that?
Yes, I do.
I think I can speak for both of us. I don't think you killed her.
Why were you saying that?
We're at the part of the interview where I felt like and was pretty certain she was getting closer to confessing and telling us more of the truth, but just getting her to be comfortable enough to tell the truth.
Okay.
I felt like in the end we treated Skylar the exact same way I would hope if it was one of my children they were treated if they were being questioned like that.
But that's not how Skylar's lawyer, Charles Rickers, saw it, not at all.
Good morning.
And the focus is very tight on that second interrogation session, in which Skylar confesses to giving birth to a live baby and then burning the remains.
I agree that she initially and several times denied that, yes.
And ultimately she was broken down and she said she tried to cremate Annabelle just a little bit, right?
Can you define broken down?
Well, do you agree that you and Detective Carter were pretending that the main purpose of your interrogation of her was to help get Annabelle's remains back to her family for a proper burial?
And I think about your dad already contacting me, asking could he have her remains so you guys can do a burial. And I feel awful, but none of that can happen because the investigation just keeps going and going because we don't have the truth yet.
Would I agree that that was my main purpose?
That's what you led Skylar to believe.
I know we alluded to that. I can't say I necessarily agree that we made it clear to her that was our main purpose, but that was certainly one of the things that we hope we would be able to accomplish.
The word cremate was used multiple times by you and Detective Carter before Skylar gave you the word back. Is that correct?
Yes, the word was used by all three of us, yes.
So where do you take her to try to cremate her? But your intention was to try to cremate her.
I wondered, well, maybe she was going to try to cremate her.
And you and Detective Carter used that theme, cremation, multiple times before she used that word. Is that correct?
No, I guess I wouldn't say used a theme. The word was used, but I'm not sure what you mean by creating a theme. I guess I don't feel like I had a theme that I was trying to create. But yes, I will agree I used that word several times as well as Detective Carter.
After you started to talk about this supposed cremation, you talked about needing to put out this fire, correct? You remember that?
Yes, sir.
What about someone seeing it? Were you worried about someone seeing a fire back there at that time of the night?
You wondered if you'd need water to put out the fire, right?
Are you sure you didn't use any water?
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant Fain, babies are 80% water, are they not?
I do not know the exact percentage, but it sounds accurate. I know at least 75.
More than adults?
Yes, sir.
Unlike a number of false confessions, we had something in this case that we could prove was scientifically impossible.
But like the fire issue, you and Detective Carter refused to accept that Annabelle was dead upon delivery. Is that true?
Refused to accept that she was dead upon birth?
Yeah, you denied Skylar those statements that she'd repeatedly made, 29 plus times.
We don't refuse or accept. We're there merely as investigators. And as we all saw, even her parents who've known her for 18 years, he said they have trouble telling when she's lying or not because she does so much.
All eyes in the courtroom are now on Skylar. Was she a practiced liar or a confused teenager up against a pair of skilled interrogators?
If you're convicted of the highest, the most severe count in this particular case, the judge has no ability to do anything but sentence you to life in prison.
Ladies and gentlemen, shortly after murdering her daughter and placing her lifeless body in the dirt behind their home, Brooke Richardson sent 2 elated text messages to her mother that both contain the phrase, "My belly is back. My belly is back." Ladies and gentlemen, that belly was her child. That belly was her daughter. A daughter with fingers and toes, with hair on her head. There's only one reason that you wouldn't ask for help at that point. Only one reason you would force yourself to give birth in silence. And that's because that child was never going to see the light of day. Any mother in that situation, if they believe that their baby is in trouble, if they believe that their baby is in danger, would be begging for help. What does Brooke do? Nothing. If you want to know how she truly felt about her daughter after just putting her in the ground, what was her reaction before she was ever charged, before she ever spoke with the police? Back when she thought she got away with everything, how did she feel? I'm literally speechless with how happy I am.
We were very worried that Skylar would deteriorate throughout the trial process, just the mere stress of the situation.
She would just check out.
She made it a conscious effort not to show. That
She
was
checked out.
the Charlie, they told her, You know, you just need to keep your head up, look straight ahead. And she did her damnedest to do it.
Her lawyer, Charles Rickers, now asking the jury to consider why the prosecution stuck by its story that the baby had been burned.
Why'd they do it? Why would they come in here and tell all of us that this cremation and fire should be trusted? Why'd they do it? If they knew, they know. They know it's not possible. We all know. Our common sense tells us it's not possible. Science tells us it's not possible. Because they know that if you have reason to doubt what Skylar said about cremation and burning, then you have reason to doubt the other things she said that the detectives told her to say about signs of life. Well, we know in this case the odds are actually zero that you can light a baby or a human being on fire with a lighter. It is impossible. If you have reason to doubt the burning, you have reason to doubt the signs of life.
That addressed the most serious counts: aggravated murder, involuntary manslaughter, and child endangerment. The fourth count for the jury to decide was abuse of a corpse.
And it is still a very serious felony. A conviction on that would label Skylar a felon. Women who kill their children, we've read about it, we've heard about it, throw them in dumpsters. They try to distance themselves from the body, throw them away in trash cans, like towels. Skylar named her child. She put her in a gravesite that she could see from her bedroom window and kept her close, put flowers on her grave and marked the grave. You have to fight for Skylar. And this is the hardest part of any case, and that's passing the burden of Skylar on you. I trust you'll find her not guilty.
The jury of 7 women and 5 men begin their deliberations just before noon.
When you're waiting for a verdict, there is no way to properly prepare anyone for that feeling. It is the most intense moment of your life.
She's either going to prison for the rest of her life or she's going home. The jury deliberates 4 hours. I think we were all shocked by how quickly it came back.
Families start piling in the gallery.
Has the jury reached a verdict in the case?
We have.
The first count is the most serious: aggravated murder.
Would the defendant please rise? With regard to count 1, we, the jury in the above captioned case, find the defendant, Brooke Skylar Richardson, not guilty of the offense of aggravated murder. We, the jury in the above captioned case, do hereby find the defendant, Brooke Skylar Richardson, not guilty of the offense of involuntary manslaughter. We, the jury, find the defendant, Brooke Skylar Richardson, not guilty of child endangerment. It does say we further find the defendant did not cause serious physical harm to the alleged victim, but that finding is not necessary as a matter of law. Verdict form number 4, we, the jury in the above captioned case, find the defendant, Brooke Skylar Richardson, guilty of the offense of abuse of a corpse.
It is the least serious of the 4 counts against her.
She knew what she had done was wrong, but she knew she was not guilty of the other charges. She could breathe again.
If I could describe my feeling after the verdict in one word, it would be relieved. I was just so happy for Skylar. I just can't imagine what she was going through, facing potential life in prison.
But she still faced sentencing for the abuse of a corpse charge, with a potential of up to 3 years in prison.
I think justice was served with respect to, I think our system works.
Court's in recess.
The jury has a job to do. It's certainly not an easy job, especially with an 18-year-old girl facing 25 years to life in prison. The prosecution had a tough task, so I believe she got a fair trial.
The next day, facing the prospect of going to prison, Skylar Richardson decides she will speak publicly for the first and only time.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would do anything and above that you ask, and I understand, and I just wanted to say how sorry I was. I can sometimes be selfish, but I would like to think that I've become better in the knowledge that I've upset everyone and hurt so many people with what I've done, and I'm forever sorry, and I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry, and I understand. and thank you.
You know, I have a daughter about your age, Ms. Richardson, and I have a granddaughter about the age that Annabelle would be right now. In all of this mess that we have with this case, I think what often gets overlooked, Ms. Richardson, is just how precious life is. Your life, Annabelle's life, life is precious, and it should be protected, and it should be guarded in all respects. And I have reviewed all of the expert reports in this case. I listened to the expert's testimony. I firmly believe, Ms. Richardson, in fact, I know in my heart that if you would have made different decisions in this case, Annabelle would be here today. And I know that might be difficult for you to hear, but I think that your choices before birth, during birth, and after show a grotesque disregard for life.
But after the harsh lecture, a light sentence.
I'm going to place you on 3 years of basic supervision, which means that you are going to be going home today.
But there was one more decision for the judge to make.
The Richardson family would like to bring closure for Annabelle and give her an eternal resting place. So we would request that you give the Richardson family Annabelle.
Mr. Richardson, do I have your word that those remains are going to be buried properly?
Absolutely, sir.
I am going to order that the remains of Annabelle be released to the Richardson family. I am going to hold Mr. Richardson to the promise that he made here today, and if he does not keep that promise, he will answer to me in that regard. Good luck to you. We are in recess.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Skylar Richardson has now enrolled in college and is receiving treatment for her eating disorder. She and Brandon are no longer a couple. The remains of Annabelle Grace Richardson are buried in a cemetery a few miles away from the Richardson home. Skylar is a regular visitor, making sure there are always fresh flowers on the grave.
Case number 2017 CR 33292. We are on the record outside the presence of the jury. Mr. Knippen, anything preliminary to come to my attention before we get started?
There you go.
Mr. Ritkers, anything preliminary to come to my attention before we get started?
No, Judge.
All right, we did have a brief discussion concerning Mr. Knippen, 3 of the state's witnesses that have requested, at least so far, not to be filmed. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, Your Honor, they are Trey Johnson, Ashley Sparkman, and Allison Campbell have requested not to be filmed when they're testifying.
All right. Ohio Rule Superintendence 12C provides that the filming, recording, or videotaping of witnesses who object shall not be permitted. I find that this request is reasonable under the circumstances, so I'm going to order that these witnesses not be filmed from their face. I will permit photos of their feet or their lower body as they come in the courtroom. I think this is a reasonable accommodation under the circumstances. Prospectively, this order will not apply to the defendant. So if Ms. Richardson elects to testify in this case and indicates that she does not want to be filmed, I'm going to have a separate hearing outside the presence of the jury to determine that issue. Anything else before we get started?
No, Your Honor.
Are we ready for our jury?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Mullins, go get our jury. That's right.
Yes.
Justin, where's Jen Yeas? You may be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Was everybody able to follow my instructions and admonitions last night and into this morning?
Yes, sir.
All right, we are now going to hear the opening statements of the attorneys. The opening statements are not evidence. They are designed to assist you with the evidence. We have agreed in advance that each side will have 45 minutes for their opening. Mr. Knippen, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm literally speechless with how happy I am. My belly is back, OMG, and I'm never, ever, ever, ever letting it get like this again. You're about to see me looking freaking better than before, OMG. Those are the words that Brooke Richardson texted to her mother just hours after she murdered her infant daughter in the middle of the night and buried her lifeless body in the dirt behind their home. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today because the defendant, Brooke Richardson, murdered a baby that she didn't want and never intended to keep. Upon finding out that she was pregnant by a boy that she wanted nothing to do with, Brooke Richardson burst into tears and told her doctor that she cannot have this baby. She kept repeating that she cannot have this baby, and she didn't want her mother to know that she was pregnant. Because of Brooke's reaction, her doctor told her that if she had any thoughts of harming herself or the child, she needed to let him know that right away. But Brooke never followed up with her doctor. In fact, she never scheduled any of the follow-up appointments that her doctor requested, and she didn't return any of the calls from the Hilltop staff or even the doctor himself when they tried to get her back in for another appointment. She never told anyone that she was pregnant, and she never followed up with any type of prenatal care. But what we know that she did do, by her own admission, is that she researched ways on the internet of, quote, how to get rid of a baby. And then in the early morning hours of May 7th, 2017, Brooke Richardson gave birth at her family home, and she told no one. She didn't call 911. She didn't go to the hospital, and she didn't even wake up her mom and dad, who were just downstairs asleep in their room. Instead, shortly after birth, Brooke killed her infant daughter so that no one would ever know that she was pregnant or that she had a child. After murdering her daughter, she disposed of any evidence of her daughter's existence and buried her daughter's body in the ground behind their home. Just hours after discarding that baby's lifeless body in the dirt, she texted her mother, "I'm literally speechless with how happy I am." Shortly after that text message, she followed it up with another text message to her mother. "I am literally so excited now just for dinner to wear something cute. Yay. My belly is back. Now I am taking this opportunity to make it amazing." And while Brooke was taking this opportunity, as she described it, to make her body look amazing, her daughter's body was decomposing in the ground behind their home. Ladies and gentlemen, Brooke Richardson grew up in a small, tight-knit community of Carlisle at 104 Eagle Ridge Drive, where she lived with her mother and father, Kim and Scott Richardson, and her brother Jackson. Brooke was a popular senior at Carlisle High School and she had plans to attend the University of Cincinnati in the fall of 2017. To outside observers, Brooke Richardson had the perfect life. But back in August of 2016, Brooke was briefly involved with a boy by the name of Trey Johnson, who was from West Carrollton. During the month of August of 2016, Brooke and Trey had sex on 2 different occasions. One of those times, they did not use any protection. Towards the end of August 2016, Brooke broke it off with Trey and told him that she wanted to focus on her cheerleading. And she then blocked him on all of the social media accounts and never talked to Trey again. In January of 2017, Brooke started dating a boy by the name of Brandon Saylor, who also went to Carlisle High School and who was a year younger than Brooke. Before long, they were texting about how much they loved each other and how they were going to spend the rest of their lives together. In April of 2017, Brooke had her mother make an appointment for her with Hilltop OBGYN for the purpose of obtaining birth control pills. But for Brooke, this appointment was a little bit more than just obtaining birth control pills. The evidence will show that at the time Brooke had her mother schedule this appointment, she already suspected that she was pregnant, and she was looking for verification. And on April 26, 2017, nearly 8 months after she broke it off with Trey Johnson, Brooke's worst fears were confirmed when Dr. Andrews told her that she was in fact pregnant. Dr. Andrew estimated that Brooke was already in her 3rd trimester and told her that she would be delivering a baby within a matter of weeks. During this appointment, Dr. Andrew conducted an abdominal ultrasound and listened to the baby's heartbeat with Brooke and determined that the fetal heart rate was strong and healthy. When Dr. Andrew spoke with Brooke about her pregnancy, she kept repeating that she cannot have this baby, and she was adamant that she could tell no one that she was pregnant. Because of Brooke's reaction, the doctor gave her what are called suicide warnings, telling her that if she had any thoughts of harming herself or the baby, that he needed to know that. Dr. Andrew requested that Brooke schedule an ultrasound the very next day and that she schedule a follow-up appointment within a week so that she could get started on prenatal care. Brooke left that afternoon from the doctor's office with specific instructions to schedule a follow-up appointment. Brooke, however, never scheduled that follow-up appointment. When Brooke failed to schedule the follow-up appointment, staff from Hilltop OBGYN began trying to reach out to her to get her back in. Dr. Andrew himself called her, trying to get her back in. But Brooke didn't return any of those calls. Not only did Brooke not speak with anyone from Hilltop, she never told anyone that she was pregnant, including the baby's father, Trey Johnson. A few days after her appointment, Hilltop accidentally sent an email to Brooke's mother, Kim Richardson, which contained information that Brooke was pregnant. During the course of this trial, you will see evidence regarding the dysfunctional relationship between Brooke and her mother, Kim Richardson. You will see evidence that Kim was obsessed with Brooke's appearance and that she constantly monitored Brooke's weight. So when Kim questioned Brooke about being pregnant, Brooke lied and said this was all just a big mistake. But Brooke did get a preview of exactly how her mother would feel about if she was pregnant. In a text message exchange, which you will see, Kim told Brooke that her life would be over and that she would have no future if she were in fact pregnant. But right then and there, ladies and gentlemen, just a few days after her appointment with Hilltop, when she found out she was pregnant, she had the perfect opportunity to come clean to her mother and tell her that she was pregnant. She was specifically questioned by her mother about that. And did Brooke finally come clean at that point and tell her what happened? No. She continued to lie and conceal this pregnancy because no one was ever going to find out about the truth of her pregnancy. The evidence will show that in the days and weeks following her appointment, Brooke made no plans to care for her child. She didn't follow up with Hilltop. She didn't start prenatal care. She didn't look at baby clothes, cribs, diapers, bottles. And she didn't research how to give her child up for adoption. She did nothing. In fact, the only real planning by Brooke during that time period was to conduct internet searches of, quote, how to get rid of a baby. On Friday, May 5th, 2017, about a week after finding out that she was pregnant, Brooke went to prom with her boyfriend, Brandon. That evening at prom, though, Brooke started having what she described as super bad cramping. When Brandon questioned her about how she was feeling, Brooke led Brandon to believe that she was just starting her period. She was determined to keep her secret. The next day, Saturday, May the 6th of 2017, Brooke continued having really bad cramps. She even texted Brandon that the cramps were so bad that she was laying on the couch with a heating pad. Brooke, however, still refused to ask for help or tell anyone that she was pregnant. Later that afternoon on Saturday, she went to a Reds game with Brandon for his birthday. She was determined not to let anyone know what was really going on. When she got home that evening, she went to her room. And then, in the middle of the night, while her mom, dad, and brother were asleep, Brooke gave birth to her daughter. Upon going into labor, she didn't call 911. She didn't try to go to the hospital. She didn't run downstairs to her mother and father. She didn't wake up her brother, who was just across the hall. She was still, even when confronted with the birthing process itself, determined to keep her secret. Under the cover of darkness, she delivered the baby all by herself, without making a noise, without alerting anyone. And finally, when the moment of truth was upon her, she took her newborn's life and disposed of that body in the yard behind their home. She then cleaned up the entire bloody mess and destroyed any evidence of her daughter's existence before climbing into bed and going to sleep. Later that morning, Brandon had sent her a text message asking how she was feeling. Brooke responded with, "I'll tell you about it later, but last night was like the worst ever, and I didn't go to sleep until 5:30. But I feel so much better this morning. I'm happy." The perfect crime, ladies and gentlemen, the perfect crime. And what did Brooke do just hours after killing her infant daughter and burying her in the backyard? She went to the gym. That afternoon, Brooke went to the gym and started working out to continue concealing any evidence that she was ever pregnant or that she had a child. This photo at the gym was taken hours after she had given birth to a full-term child without any medical assistance. Brooke's determination to erase any evidence of her child was inconceivable. Not only did she go to the gym, she immediately started photographing her weight loss. And for the next few days and weeks, Brooke resumed living her perfect life, spending time with Brandon and looking forward to attending college in the fall. Everything was perfect again. But on July 12, 2017, Brooke had to go back to Hilltop OBGYN to have her birth control prescription refilled. This time, however, Brooke saw a different doctor. She saw Dr. Boyce. When Dr. Boyce asked Brooke what she was there for, Brooke told her that she needed a refill of her birth control. What Brooke didn't know, however, was that Dr. Andrew and other staff had talked with Dr. Boyce before this appointment and informed her about the previous appointment where she was told that she was pregnant. So when Brooke told Dr. Boyce that she needed a refill on her birth control, Dr. Boyce confronted her about being pregnant at the last visit. At that point, Brooke broke down and stated that she had the baby and buried it in the backyard. Brooke told Dr. Boyce that she didn't tell anyone about what happened and that she still didn't want her mother to know. Dr. Boyce told Brooke that she wanted to examine her to make sure that she didn't have any health complications or injuries from delivering the baby by herself. But Brooke refused the examination. 2 days later, on July 14, 2017, Dr. Boyce called the Carlisle Police Department and informed them about what Brooke had disclosed. Carlisle turned the investigation over to the Warren County Sheriff's Office. On that same day, July 14, 2017, Lieutenant John Fain with the Warren County Sheriff's Office and Officer Katie Gee from the Carlisle Police Department interviewed Brooke at the Carlisle Police Department. The interview was audio and video recorded. During that interview, Brooke stated that she had the baby in the middle of the night, didn't think that the baby was alive, and then buried her in the backyard without telling anyone. Due to the suspicious circumstances of the burial and the fact that she never told anyone that she was pregnant or had given birth or had buried the baby, Lieutenant Fain asked her if she ever researched ways of how to give herself a self-abortion. In response, Brooke admitted that she conducted internet searches on how to get rid of a baby. After the interview was conducted, members of the Warren County Crime Scene Unit, as well as the Warren County Coroner, Dr. Updegrove, were at Brooke's home excavating the skeletal remains of her infant daughter from the tree line along the back of their property. The remains were collected and taken to the Montgomery County Coroner's Office for examination. As the skeletal remains were examined over the next several days, a forensic anthropologist observed that some of the bones appeared darker than others and suspected that they might have been burned. Subsequently, the Warren County Sheriff's Office conducted a second search of Brooke's home. During that second search, a few additional bones were recovered from the burial site. In addition to searching the property again, Lieutenant Fain conducted another interview with Brooke Richardson, this time with the assistance of Detective Carter from the Warren County Sheriff's Office. During this interview, Brooke admitted the following: that her daughter was alive for approximately 5 minutes. She saw her daughter's arms moving a little, heard her gurgle, and heard her cry. She squeezed the baby too hard and thinks she may have killed her, and that she attempted to burn the baby after her death in an effort to cremate her. After Brooke's secret was exposed, she sent a text message to her boyfriend Brandon stating, "I love you. I'm so sorry that I never told you. Please understand that I was scared and worried and so scared of losing you." During the course of the investigation, the skeletal remains were sent to Dr. Krista Latham, a forensic anthropologist with the University of Indianapolis. And she will testify that the skeletal remains are consistent with a 37 to 40 week full-term baby. She also examined the bones, and when she examined the bones, she did not see any evidence of burning on the bones themselves. But she will also tell you that that doesn't mean that the child wasn't burned. Common sense will tell you that you can burn skin or tissue without it going all the way down to the bones. So this narrative, where they keep saying that the evidence proves conclusively that this child was never burned, is false. In addition to Dr. Latham, you will also hear from Dr. Susan Allen, who is a coroner with the Montgomery County Coroner's Office. Dr. Allen reviewed the skeletal remains, the transcripts and interviews of Brooke Richardson, and other information related to the case, and she concluded that the newborn baby's cause of death was homicidal violence of undetermined etiology, meaning that she cannot tell you exactly how this child died, but she can tell you that it was the result of homicidal violence. And there was only one person in this world that ever knew that child existed: Brooke Richardson. As a result of the defendant's actions, Brooke has been charged with multiple offenses: aggravated murder, involuntary manslaughter, endangering children, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. Ladies and gentlemen, as I told you at the beginning of this opening statement, Brooke Richardson killed a baby that she didn't want and never intended to keep. She didn't plan for her pregnancy, and she didn't prepare for her daughter's birth. Her actions and her statements demonstrate that she had no intention of having this baby. Rather, the decision on the life of Brooke's daughter was made before that child was even born. She was never going to see the light of day, no matter what. And when the time came, in the middle of the night, and she could conceal her daughter no longer, she took her newborn's life, buried it in the backyard, and destroyed any evidence of the existence of her daughter. And just hours after putting her daughter in the ground, she documented her feelings about exactly what was going through her head at that time. "I'm literally speechless with how happy I am."
Council approach, please. All right, Mr. Rickers, you may proceed.
What you all just heard was a bunch of half-truths. And what I want to do right now is put a lot of the things that you heard into context, because everything in life needs context. I want to take you back to April 26th of 2017. Skylar goes to her first OBGYN appointment in her entire life. She had never been there, and she went to get birth control pills. And she had a choice. She could go wherever she wanted. She chose to go to the doctor that delivered her, Dr. Andrew, whom you'll hear from. He delivered Skylar, he delivered her brother. And I think you'll find his testimony very interesting and important in this case. Now, when Skylar went to Dr. Andrew on April 26th of 2017, she was full term. She was 37 to 39 weeks pregnant. And she did not know certainly that she was pregnant. That's not to say she did not have suspicions earlier, but she did not know certainly that she was pregnant. How do we know that? Well, her reaction, as the prosecutor mentioned. She reacted in utter surprise and shock, and genuinely. She reacted like any 18-year-old girl who's told for the first time that she is certainly pregnant would. And if she had this sinister motive to hide and conceal the fact that she was going to kill a child, she wouldn't have reacted like that. It can't be both ways. She reacted genuinely when she first found out that she was pregnant. And you will hear from Dr. Andrew probably today. And Dr. Andrew will tell you that the things that the prosecutor mentioned about suicide, he tells every woman in their third trimester. And that her response, he's been a doctor for decades. He's delivered thousands of babies. And he said that her response for a young teenage mother was normal for finding out the first time that you're pregnant. Not unexpected, especially given she was 37. Well, I'll get into that in a minute. At the time, no one knew how pregnant she was, including the doctor. Now, Skylar did have, as I mentioned, a suspicion that she was pregnant prior to April 26th of 2017. And the two things that typically tell most women that they're certainly pregnant were not uncommon for Skylar, and that was weight gain and a lack of a menstrual cycle. Skylar suffered from the age of 12 from a very serious eating disorder. She went to Children's Hospital to see a nutritionist when she was very young in junior high. She saw a psychologist named Terry Roll for about 2 years of her life. She was in and out of treatment because her mom and dad were so worried about her eating disorder. Which also, these text messages that the prosecutor takes grossly out of context about her body and her image of her body. She was like that for years, since really 8th grade. And her mother was very obsessive. And her mother now, I think, realizes that the way in which she talked to Skylar, cheering her on about losing weight, was like throwing gasoline on a fire, an eating disorder. Didn't deal with it well. And so those texts that we now see after May 7th, looking back on hindsight, were Skylar focusing on the only thing she thought she could control at the time, which is her body. And she did. She put a smile on for the outside world. And you'll hear from Dr. Andrew and probably Dr. Boyce, who the prosecutor is going to call. And they're going to talk to us about how people deal with stillbirths differently in their experience as doctors, as OBGYNs. These texts of Skylar's selfie text to her mother, text constantly about her weight, were common in Skylar's life for 6 years. 6 years. Now, when Skylar went to this OBGYN appointment on April 26th, Dr. Andrew took 2 measurements of her stomach. And one, he used this tape. And this is a measuring tape from Hilltop OBGYN. It's called a fundal height measurement that he took using a measuring tape. This is his standard practice. And you'll see it in the records. He also took another measurement, which was a transabdominal ultrasound. And both measurements, independent of the other, gave him the estimation that Skylar was only 32 weeks pregnant. Now, the fundal height measurement with the tape is much more accurate than the transabdominal ultrasound. And you'll hear that from Dr. Andrew. A fear for any obstetrician, any OBGYN, is if a woman is smaller, if the estimation is more than 2 weeks off on the small side. It's a very big indicator of a problem. It's called growth restriction, intrauterine growth restriction, to be exact. In this case, Skylar was 5 to 7 weeks too small. And we can tell by looking at her. I'm going to show you a picture of Skylar in a prom dress in February of 2017. This is when she picks out her dress with her mother in February of 2017. Same dress, corset back, no elasticity. And you'll have these pictures. 3 months later, she gets through her third trimester. 3 months later, on May 5th, when she goes to prom, her senior year, the same dress, no alterations are made. This is a side-by-side. The picture I first showed you was on the left in February, and the picture in May, and you'll have it in your hands to look back in the jury room, May 5th. Now there are people that you're going to hear from in this case who saw Skylar every single day. No motivation to lie. English teacher, his name's Mr. Curry, saw her every school day. He saw her May 5th, 2 days before she delivers full term. He will tell us he had no idea she was pregnant. Her swim coach, her senior year, her boyfriend, who the prosecutors mentioned, they were in a sexual relationship. And you can tell from text messages, he had no idea she was pregnant. She was small. That goes to the growth-restricted fetus. And the weight fluctuations that I previously mentioned were up and down her whole life, 90 to 140 pounds. This is a side-by-side of Skylar, her sophomore winter and sophomore summer. Summer is on the left, and the winter is on the right. 6 months apart. Her weight would fluctuate 30 to 40 pounds her entire life. She would miss a year of a period at times. This is Skylar 6 months apart. Sophomore year in high school. And this is Skylar at something called the Pigskin Preview that they do in Carlisle, her senior year. This would be in about July or August of her senior year. Her weight went up and down constantly. And the people around her did not know that she was pregnant. Now, when Dr. Andrew takes this measurement with this measuring tape, he tells Skylar, and you're going to hear him say it. He's going to be in here, I think, today, and he's going to say, I told Skylar you can expect to deliver a baby within 10 weeks. That's what he'll tell us all. He said to Skylar, you can expect to deliver a baby within 10 weeks. 10 weeks is July 5th. So Skylar does think she has time, and you are going to see that her mother does not and would not probably have reacted to her pregnancy well. But she thinks she has time before she has to tell her mother and her boyfriend that she's pregnant. The doctor says within 10 weeks. So Skylar thinks she has 8 to 10 weeks. Now, what she does not know at the time, and what nobody knows, is that just 11 days later, not 10 weeks, 10 weeks, 11 days later, that she delivered. And she delivered a full-term baby. And that doesn't mean the baby was big. You can measure full-term by a femur length. It doesn't mean the baby had like good circumferences, and we'll hear a lot more about that from the doctors in this case, all the doctors. So Skylar goes to prom on May 5th with her boyfriend Brandon, and she's having cramps. And Skylar thinks, I've heard pregnancy is difficult and painful, and she's naive, and she does not know that that might be pre-labor. She has no idea. The doctor told her within 10 weeks. And this is about 8 days later, a week later. The next day, they go to the Reds game. She goes to the Reds game with her mom and dad and with her boyfriend. They come home, her mom and dad go to bed. Her boyfriend, Brandon, sits down, they hang out on the couch downstairs in the living room right outside their mom and dad's door. He has a curfew around 10:30. Skylar and her boyfriend hang out. She's in pretty intense pain. She goes upstairs and she cannot sleep. And sometime around 2 or 3 in the morning, she has what she thinks is the most intense pain she's ever felt. She walks to the top of the stairs. She's going to go downstairs to get some Aleve to help with the pain. And she can't keep her legs under her. She walks 7 steps into the bathroom and sits down with the urge to urinate and delivers a baby. But the baby is white. The umbilical cord is not attached. The baby's not breathing, not moving, no sounds. Skylar grabs a towel. Skylar worked at a child watch center with children and babies. She grabs a towel off the towel rack and swaddles her child. She sits down on the bathroom floor, half naked and bleeding, with her back leaning up against her bathtub. You'll see pictures of her bathroom. The toilet would be right in front of her, the bathtub right behind her. So if this is the bathtub, she sits down, butt on the ground, holding her baby. Touches her baby, she cries. Skylar cries, not Annabelle. She names her daughter Annabelle. She stands up, she walks downstairs, she gets a tiny little spade shovel that you would dig up tulip bulbs with, that her mom had in the garage. She walks outside, she walks out to a tree line that is visible from her bedroom window with all the strength she has left, and digs a shallow grave. She places Annabelle inside, covers the grave with dirt, and drags a flower pot that weighs about 25 pounds over in front of the gravesite. Gets flowers, puts them on the grave, and goes back inside, upstairs, and collapses in bed. From her window, she can see this gravesite. So the prosecutor, and she did bury Annabelle in a shallow grave. So the prosecutor's discussion about conceal and destroy, she buried her daughter and marked the grave and put flowers on top of it. She didn't throw her in a trash can. She didn't throw her in a dumpster. So why are we here? Well, as I think you know, this case comes down ultimately to the interrogations. And the fairest thing to do for all of us would be to play them in their entirety right now. So we don't all have to sit here and wonder whether or not the police put words in Skylar's mouth, whether or not the statements Skylar made were true or possible, so that you can all use your common sense and view it with your mind. I only have 45 minutes, and the interrogations actually lasted about 9 hours, but the clips are down to about 5.5. I can't play them all for you right now. The fairest thing to do for the prosecutor would be play them early in the case, so we don't wonder if these statements were Skylar's words or the police words. But what I'd like to do right now is show some clips from those interrogations. Do you mind? July 14th was the first interrogation in this case, and a detective in the case, Detective Fain, summarized what was stated in that interrogation in a clip that I'm going to play for you. And he says, "We talked how on May 7th, you were really certain it was May 7th is the day, right? That you delivered her and it was in the bathroom sometime, maybe sometime in the middle of the night, because your parents were home and asleep. You delivered her in the bathroom. She wasn't breathing or anything. Her eyes didn't open. There was no heartbeat, and you checked. You pushed. You didn't want to push too hard because she was a brand new baby, but you pushed just to check, and there was no heartbeat. You held her for a little bit there, like on your lap, and then you wrapped her in a towel, and you went downstairs with her into the garage. Maybe it's called, like, I'm just going to call it like your mom's garden shovel or something like that, and took her and put her in a shallow grave right out in the backyard. And you didn't put the towel in there, you just put her in there and covered her up. Okay, does that sound right, like what we talked about on Friday?" He summarizes the interrogation of Friday in this clip. I'd like you to play clip 50.
Okay, but we talked about how May 7th, and you were really certain May 7th is the day, right, that you delivered her, and it was in the bathroom, sometime in the middle of the night because your parents were home and asleep. You delivered her in the bathroom. She wasn't breathing or anything. Her eyes didn't open. There was no heartbeat, and you checked. You pushed. You didn't want to push too hard because she was a brand new baby, but you pushed just to check, and there was no heartbeat. You held her for a little bit there, like on your lap, and then you wrapped her in a towel, and you went downstairs with her into the garage, got maybe it's called like I'm just going to call it like your mom's garden shovel or something like that, and took her out and put her in that shallow grave right out in the back of the yard, and you didn't put the towel in there, you just put her in there and covered her up. Okay, does that sound right, like what we talked about Friday? Okay.
So the Friday he's referring to is the first interrogation on July 14th. And the Warren County Sheriff's Office does a press release after that interrogation. And they say, although the remains have not yet been identified, initial reports have led investigators to believe they are that of a stillborn baby. There are no charges filed, no arrests made. But what happens? Well, then comes this mistake by the prosecutor's doctor. And her name is Dr. Murray. And you're not going to hear from her. They're not going to call her to the stand. Dr. Murray rushes. She admits that she rushes. She says the bones are burned. The bones are charred. So the detectives have a job to do, and they're dead set on doing it. It changes everything about the case. Burning a bone of a baby. This doctor many weeks later said I was wrong. She told the prosecutor's office I was wrong. She said, I ain't gonna lie to them and I ain't gonna lie for them. She said, I don't know why I upset their apple cart so much when she admitted her mistake many weeks later. Many weeks. But what happens? The police don't know that this doctor was wrong. They don't know that every doctor in this case will also come in here and say no evidence of burning. So they're dead set on getting not only a confession about burning, but now they're dead set on getting a confession about a live baby. Go get a confession about burning, go get a confession about a live baby. So they schedule a second interrogation of Skylar. 6 days later. Now at this point, the police have been to the house, they've dug up Annabelle's remains, left some of her remains actually in the grave after they went through it the first time. And her mom and dad and her entire family, they trust the police. They trusted the police. Skylar's taught to trust authority. The police knew best. And she goes back, taken by her mom and dad, no lawyer, nothing, into a 6x8 windowless room. And the police have to start making her vulnerable to their truth. They won't take Skylar's truth. And so I want to play a couple clips before I do that. Skylar describes, and you'll see all this, she describes a dead baby 29 times. And some of the things she's saying, she doesn't know the medical significance of. I don't even think the police do. Not breathing, white, umbilical cord not attached, no need to cut the umbilical cord. And it's glossed over. She denies fire. She's utterly confused by fire comment. And the police won't take the truth from her. They want her to tell them their story. So how do they do it? Well, they make her vulnerable. They make her more susceptible to accepting their words. They tell Skylar that Annabelle's remains will not be returned to her family unless she tells them more of their truth. Please play clip. I'm going to read it first. It's 1:10, just so you're ready. Detective Fain, you're so close. We're still just waiting to hear. I guess all I can think about right now is Annabelle. You know, like I think about her remains just still being sifted through by doctors and doctors. And I think about how your dad, how he already contacted me asking, could he have her remains so you guys can do a burial? And I feel awful, but none of that can happen because the investigation just keeps going and going, and we don't have the truth yet. Please, 1:10, please.
You're so close, we're still just waiting to hear this. I guess all I can think about right now is Annabelle. You know, I can just think about her remains just still being sifted through by doctors and doctors, and I think about your dad already contacting me, asking could he have her remains so you guys can do a burial, and I feel awful, but none of that can happen because the investigation just keeps going and going because we don't have the truth yet.
And they don't stop there, and you're going to see all this with your own eyes and ears. But I'm going to play another clip. They tell Skylar that the doctors not only are searching, they're sifting and they're poking Annabelle. He says she deserves better, and Skylar's already said she deserved better, meaning Skylar said she deserved better, she needed a proper burial. He says she deserved better than being in a lab with doctors, just searching and sifting and poking and everything. 115, please.
Better, like she deserves better than being in a lab with doctors, just searching and sifting and poking and everything.
Now the police at this time, when they're interrogating Skylar alone in this windowless room, they know that Skylar and her family have already contacted them and made the request to get Annabelle back. That Annabelle was taken out of their backyard in plastic buckets, and that she and her family wanted to do a formal memorial and burial. They know this at the time. So they tell Skylar, and this is Detective Carter now. So we just need to know what happened, again, so we can put her to rest. We can give her that final, we know everything that happened. We know you know in what order it happened, and we can just put her at rest, give her a proper memorial. You guys can do all of this with her remains. Skylar, I didn't do it. Detective Carter, well, I would assume your family is going to want to plan something when they get her back, but we can't release her until we know everything. 105.
Happened. It's about Mythbusters. So we just need to know what happened, again, so that we can put her at rest. We can give her that final, we know everything that happened. We know, in what order it happened, and we can just put her at rest, give her a proper memorial. You guys can do all of those sorts of things. I get you. Well, I would assume your family is going to want to plan something when they get her back, but we can't release her till we know everything. So we have to kind of...
They tell Skylar that every time she gives them the truth, which is their truth, that they've repeatedly denied hers. They tell her that every time she gives them the truth, their truth, that she's getting closer to getting Annabelle back, to giving her a proper eternal resting place. In 114, we don't have to play it right now, Detective Fain says, see, everything you do, every time you tell us the truth, it continues to help her. Because like Brandy said, that's Detective Carter, it fills in the hole and just keeps making it smaller. And then we're going to get it all the way closed, and we're going to get her, back to your family where she belongs. So there can be a real, true burial where she's honored. 114, please.
But it helps Annabelle. See, everything you do, every time you tell us the truth, it continues to help her, because like Brandy said, it fills in this hole and just keeps making it smaller, and then we're going to get it all the way closed, and we're going to get her, back to your family where she belongs. So there can be a real, true burial where she's honored. And
they act like they're there to help Skylar, and Skylar frankly thinks that they are. You can see Skylar holding Detective Carter's hands, one hand at first, two hands at times. Holding each other's hands. She's holding the detective. And they say that I'm going to show one thing. This is about the fire nonsense that apparently is not going to be admitted that's wrong. They say that it's a medical scientific certainty that there was burning. This is before they knew that this doctor was going to say I was wrong. And they tell Skylar that they believe her, that she would never hurt her child, but they're not their own bosses. That it would be a lot better if Skylar said she cremated her child, because some people might think she just threw her child in the middle of a fire. And they use that word cremate multiple times. So Detective Carter says, we know medically what happened, but there's a big difference. I think you would agree between someone throwing someone in a fire and someone having a reason and some sort of justification for why that happened. Does that make sense? Okay? 112, please.
we know medically what happened, but there's a big difference, I think you would agree, between someone throwing someone in a fire and someone having a reason and some sort of justification for why that happened. Does that make sense? Okay, that's what I know you keep.
Now, the word cremate is used repeatedly by the police. And they tell Skylar essentially, I think you'll see this yourself. It's better to just agree with us, give us our truth, because you're not going to be accepted. Your truth won't be accepted. So guess what your words they get Skylar to say when they finally break her down, when they repeatedly refuse her denials. I touched the baby with a lighter and tried to cremate her a little bit. Now, what is not possible is a child catching on fire by touching it with a lighter. It is not possible. Babies are 80% water. And there is a conversation in the interrogations, and it is in the police report, that the flames went up to the chest before Skylar thought it was wrong and put them out. She's utterly confused by this whole conversation, but she's giving the police what they asked her to give them. She just went shoo, she said. And the police don't second guess it at all, that it's impossible to touch a child with a lighter and have the child catch on fire. But that's the conversation that they have in this interrogation. How'd you put out the fire after you touch a baby with a lighter? Skylar's confused, and you'll hear it. Now, at the time, the police don't know that all this evidence, that this doctor will change her mind, that this evidence that they were told doesn't actually exist. And they tell Skylar after she's, in fact, I'll show you a report from the state's own doctor. This is their doctor, Dr. Latham. She writes a letter to the prosecutors, Mr. Knippen. This is her report. She's an anthropologist out of Indiana. Thank you. And she says, you'll hear from her, Dr. Latham. It's the state's doctor. She says there are no signs of burning. Their own doctor. But it's too late. This letter's dated January of 2018. Now, when they have her vulnerable, when they've made her malleable, when they've used all this stuff against her, sadness about her daughter and the remains, then they say, you gotta tell us signs of life. We don't think you killed her if you tell us there were signs of life. We will continue to think you didn't kill her if you tell us there were signs of life. And they repeatedly deny that this was a stillbirth and gloss over all the things that would make us all know that it was. Detective Fain says, I think I can speak for both of us. I don't think you killed her, but I think you had signs that she was alive at least just a little bit. You know, but I don't think you killed her. But I believe that based on everything and talking to you, and I just believe that there were signs that she was alive at first. And then, but I don't think you tried to kill her. But I think there were signs that she was. And I want you to please for her, just tell me. What? Tell us what those were. How do you know at first? You know that she was probably alive just a little bit. Can you play clip 119?
We don't think, I think I can speak for both of us, I don't think you killed her. But I think you had signs that she wasn't alive, at least just a little bit, you know, but I don't think you killed her. But I believe that based on everything and talking to you, and I just believe that there are signs that she was alive at first. And then I don't think you tried to kill her, but I think there were signs that she was, and I want you to please for her, just tell us what those were. How did you know at first, you know, that she was probably alive just a little?
So one of the words the prosecutor mentioned, gurgle, is like the fire. Children are predominantly obligate nose breathers. Unless their nose is completely congested the first several months of life, they breathe through their nose, not their mouth. And it's a police word, gurgle. And if a child is delivered into water, they will not attempt to take a breath until they are put into the air. Some women actually choose to deliver underwater. It's called a mammalian dive reflex. So what do the police tell Skylar over and over again? In fact, I think they say this 8 or 9 times in the interrogation, gurgle. They say it a couple times before they finally break Skylar down. Guess what she says? Maybe a little gurgle. That's what he said, and that's what you'll hear. It's their word, gurgle. Gurgle, you create gurgle like with mouthwash blowing out of your mouth with air exhumed from your mouth. It is highly unlikely that a baby would gurgle out of their mouth, a newborn infant. Skylar was a young teenager who had no idea the medical significance. She had no idea what is so critical, and a lot of times the police didn't either, that the things that she said really did, she never used the word stillbirth ever in the interrogations. But what she did say is repeatedly, I never had to cut the cord. Never had to cut the cord. It's a lifeline for the baby. Most of us know that the cord, the umbilical cord, is attached to the placenta and it brings life to the fetus in the womb. And at one point, even the detective is surprised that Skylar wouldn't have had to cut the cord for her baby. And you will see Skylar, again, searching, feeling guilty about this stillbirth. She thinks that the fact that she didn't cut the cord hurt the child. You'll see that in the interrogation. When the detective is surprised by the fact that she didn't have to cut the cord, Skylar says, oh my gosh. She has no idea what she's describing to these police officers. What color is the baby? She's white. Was there any further inquiry in the interviews about these very important things? None. Glossed over. Eyes closed, no heartbeat, not breathing. More than 29 times. But like the burning issue, they refuse to accept the truth. They want her to tell them their truth, even though their truth turned out later to be wrong. And in the interrogation, at one point, it was taken grossly out of context. Skylar's asked if she would have ever thought about an abortion, looked into an abortion, and she says directly to the detective, I did a Google search once, how not to have or how to get rid of a baby, in the context of abortion or self-abortion. But what Skylar said after that is, I never did further research on it. I never went to a website. I never acted upon it. When the police ask for Skylar's phone, she freely gives it to them. They take her iPad, her computer, they take a Kindle, they take 20 electronics out of the Richardson household. They do a download. That search was not there. And what she told them was correct. There was no websites, no research, nothing about that statement that the prosecutor keeps bringing up and taken out of context. Now they suggest that what Skylar hid her pregnancy because she is evil, because she had this sinister premeditated plan to kill a child. But what you're going to hear from some of Skylar's teachers, a counselor who saw Skylar every school day, an English teacher who saw her every school day. Girls who worked with Skylar at Child Watch, who haven't seen her for 2 years, never hung out with her outside of work, but saw her interact with children. Skylar was a gentle, loving, kind individual who had problems, would not hurt an insect, let alone being mean to a human being or a murderer. So this whole idea that nobody wants to know, no, Skylar wants nobody to know, she goes back to the same OBGYN on July 12th. And there's a bunch of allusion here that, I can't see Dr. Andrew. You will hear from Dr. Andrew and Dr. Boyce that the way an OBGYN practice works typically, especially for a pregnant person, because you don't know what doctor's going to be on call when you deliver, is you see different doctors see patients. She goes back to the same practice. And she knows she's going to be asked. She knows that they know she's pregnant. And on April 26th, she could have refused the pregnancy test, and she did not. She goes back on July 12th. And Dr. Boyce asks her, what happened to your child? And Skylar breaks down and sobs. And Dr. Boyce will tell you she described as stillborn. And Dr. Boyce put that in her notes. And Dr. Boyce said her reaction was genuine, sobbing, tears actually rolling down her cheeks. And people outside of the exam room, outside of those walls of that room, heard Skylar sobbing, telling Dr. Boyce what happened. Now, Dr. Boyce and Dr. Andrew and a lot of other doctors in this case will talk about some grave concerns about stillbirths. Bleeding in the 3rd trimester. That is indicative of a placental issue, placental abruption. IUGR, intrauterine growth restriction, drastically increases the odds of a stillbirth. And we can know that without being doctors, just looking at Skylar. There are people that look at those pictures of her on May 5th. There are people who knew her and saw her in person, didn't think she was pregnant. But the question should be, does she look 9 months pregnant? 9 months pregnant. That's the question. Some people think she looks pregnant on May 5th, some people don't. Some people actually saw her in person, most people didn't. 6 years of a serious eating disorder, anorexia and bulimia. Highly indicative, chances are raised of stillbirth. And finally, as you've heard, no need to cut an umbilical cord. Skylar, you will see in the interview, she had no idea what that meant. She was surprised about all of this conversation. The detective actually has to explain what a placenta is to her. And the prosecutor showed you bones, Annabelle's remains, which they dug up and put in plastic buckets. And they missed getting all of the remains when they were at Skylar's house the first time. And they go back and they find more in a shallow grave. They didn't even get all of Annabelle's remains. Why are we being shown all these photographs if the prosecutor's own doctor admits that there's no evidence, none, of trauma that would indicate that Skylar or anyone did anything to cause this child's death? Why? Why? Showing us her remains spread out, yeah, of course. She was buried in the ground in a marked grave, and they dug up her remains. Why are they parading these remains in here? Why? Their own doctor says no signs of trauma, none. So what's the importance of those? Now, they have tens of thousands of text messages, tens of thousands, 20 plus electronic devices. Can you imagine what's on phones? Tens of thousands of searches, text messages. But what we don't have are the text messages when Skylar's in 8th grade or 10th grade. The constant focus on her body. Her mom's constant focus and cheering her on as she's trying to drop weight. Skylar didn't tell anyone that she had the stillborn. She kept it to herself. She did. And she put a smile on for the outside world and acted as if she was happy. She did. This case is about a rush to judgment. And it's all about that second interrogation. It's the whole case. And if you can't, if we know that the police were able to break her down and make her vulnerable and admit to something that is scientifically impossible, something that later is admitted to be wrong, they're going to base their entire case on the same interrogation. They didn't, when they found out this was all wrong, they didn't hit a reset button. They didn't say, we made a grave mistake, when the doctor said I was wrong. In fact, apparently they were upset. They disregarded any truth, anything that would in any way question their truth and story. And they said, well, Skylar said it. We'll just keep going. We'll just keep moving forward. And I trust that you'll keep an open mind throughout this entire case. And at the end of this case, you'll find Skylar not guilty of all counts. Thank you.
Mr. Knippen, call your first witness, please.
The state will call Trey Johnson.
Requested not to be photographed, so we would ask that he not be pursuant to the court's previous order.
The Ohio cheerleader who was convicted by a jury of abusing her newborn's corpse is making a request of the judge. Brooke Richardson is asking the judge to seal her 5th-degree felony conviction. Now, Richardson, who is now 23 years old, was found guilty in September of 2019 of abuse of a corpse following the death of her baby girl that she then buried in the backyard of her parents' home. She claimed the baby was stillborn.
Would the defendant please rise? With regard to count 1, we, the jury in the above captioned case, find the defendant, Brooke Schuyler Richardson, not guilty of the offense of aggravated murder, and there appear to be 12 jury signatures affixed. Verdict form 2, involuntary manslaughter. We, the jury in the above captioned case, do hereby find the defendant, Brooke Schuyler Richardson, not guilty of the offense of involuntary manslaughter. Count 3, child endangerment. We, the jury, find the defendant, Brooke Schuyler Richardson, not guilty of child endangerment. It does say we further find the defendant did not cause serious physical harm to the alleged victim, but that finding is not necessary as a matter of law. Verdict form number 4, we, the jury in the above captioned case, find the defendant, Brooke Schuyler Richardson, guilty of the offense of abuse of a corpse.
Now, Richardson's attorney said she now has a job, she's in college, and continues with mental health treatment. She's even working for her attorney's law firm and intends to study law. Now, Richardson, a then 18-year-old high school senior, gave birth to the baby girl in secret and then buried her in the backyard. She was acquitted on charges of aggravated murder, involuntary manslaughter, and child endangerment. A forensic anthropologist who examined the baby's remains testified there was evidence the baby's bones may have been burned, a theory her defense denied.
First of all, I can start with the police. You would think that once they got Schuyler to say that she actually burned her baby and the baby combusted in the middle of the night after she delivered this stillborn.
How do you tell us what's going on? He says, you have to tell us you're 18. You can't tell us.
I tried to cremate the baby just a little.
You tried to cremate the baby?
Yeah, that's what I did.
Did you also have an opportunity to examine the skeletal remains, the bones, for any indications of burning or thermal damage? I'm sorry.
I didn't see any evidence of burning or thermal damage to any of the skeletal elements that I had to observe.
When this was presented to this pathologist, you would think that a professional pathologist would think twice. Did that really happen? Where I had a conversation with her, and I specifically asked her that question, and she says, the question being, can you light a baby on fire with a lighter by touching its foot? And she said, and this is in the trial, I don't know, I never tried it. And what, is that really science? Is that really science? So then we go from there to the prosecutor's office, and they should have taken a little bit more careful review of what's going on, but they're relying on the experts being from that Montgomery County Coroner's Office.
I reject the idea that somehow we did anything improper. As a matter of fact, ma'am,
About evidence, isn't that a possible violation of the Code of Professional Ethics?
No, it's not.
I think you should check.
I'm well aware of the Code of Professional Ethics, ma'am. With respect to this particular case, what we did when we obtained that information, when we received that information, it was done by Dr. Murray, who was not somebody that was employed by our office. It was somebody that was employed by, I think, Mount St. Joseph University. They were retained by the Montgomery County Coroner's Office.
More than 2 years ago, they found out, they knew that this cremation story was false. They knew it. Why'd they do it? Because they know that if you have reason to doubt what Schuyler said about cremation and burning, then you have reason to doubt the other things she said that the detectives told her to say about signs of life.
The information that was relayed to us was that the bones had been charred, and that was what that statement was based on that particular date. Ma'am, stop. Stop.
You did make it public.
Ma'am.
You did not.
Ma'am, let me answer the question. We obtained that information, and in response to that, because I lacked confidence, because I had an expert witness who initially gave the state of Ohio an opinion that the bones had been charred and subsequently recanted that testimony, the first thing that we did was we reviewed our docket to find out whether this expert had ever given any opinions in any other cases. And number two, we notified defense counsel, and we advised defense counsel 2 years ago that we were going to get an independent analysis of this, of the remains of this baby.
Yeah, that burning issue, very important, because I think it helped her get away with the higher charges. She only was convicted of the 5th-degree felony. Still with me, attorneys David Bruno and Tammy Allison. And David, I'll start with you. You know, as I looked into this issue and this idea of expunging the record or sealing the record, it was real interesting. What an effect this type of thing can have on someone's life, first of all. And second of all, the overall effect it has on us as a society in terms of the cost of people not being able to get jobs, finding themselves in situations they can't find proper housing because they have these felony convictions. Where do you come down on this issue? This is a young girl, found herself in a difficult position. Ultimately, a jury only convicted her of the 5th-degree felony of abusing a corpse. Now she wants that gone. She may even want to become an attorney, which will help her do that as well. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, first off, this is it's called expungement in most states. It's not here. It's called sealing of the record, and it's available to most individuals that qualify. And because she was acquitted of the higher charges, she was only convicted of a 5th-degree felony, where, pursuant to that state's law, it does allow for this sealing. But my read of it, and I think I'm accurate on this, that the F5 felony requires 3 years of a time passing after the probation is ended. So that's some procedural requirements that is common everywhere. Generally speaking, I'm for expungements because the collateral consequences of a conviction for individuals are drastic. They need to disclose these arrests and these convictions on job applications. And to your point, there's other government benefits that they're not able to get. So I think there's room for this in every single state. I am behind it. I support it. It just has to meet the procedural requirements in that state statute.
Yeah, now Tammy, you're a federal clemency attorney, so you know a little bit about clemency. Now this isn't clemency, but it's in that genre to a certain degree. Your thoughts on this issue? I just found it fascinating.
Yes, Michael, there's a lot of moving parts here. So in terms of expungement versus sealing the record, you know, some states call it expungement, but it's actually inaccurate. The proper terminology would probably be to just seal the record, because expungements typically deal with arrests that do not result in conviction. And convictions typically, you know, as David stated, there's a time requirement to show that there's a low risk of recidivism and other qualifying factors for an individual to petition the court to have their records sealed if there is a conviction that's eligible for sealing in specific states. At the federal level, that doesn't exist. And the only option is clemency, which is forgiveness, where someone accepts responsibility for the offense conduct and they are asking for forgiveness, but they show what they've done since the conviction, things that have been positive, whether it's a commutation or a pardon. Commutation, if they're in prison still, they can still get clemency, showing what they've done since they've been incarcerated. And then a pardon, someone that's already out of prison, showing what they've done to give back, to be a better person. And that big thing is to show a low risk of recidivism. And I don't think in this situation, she's even had a chance to do that. So no, she's not eligible, in my opinion, right now.
That's interesting. You know, she is working, and you're right. It becomes a balancing test for the court. They basically have to balance the individual's interest in having the record expunged or sealed versus the legitimate needs of the state in maintaining such records. Again, people, for certain crimes, like in Ohio, sex crimes, particular violent crimes, 1st and 2nd degree felonies, they consider the right of the public to know that about a person higher than the person's interest. So you can't even ask for expungement in those situations. Here, you have to go into court, you have to show them that you're remorseful, show them, as you said, Tammy, that you've been doing things. I want to take a look back at right after the conviction. She speaks to the court. This is Skylar Richardson, and she's already beginning this remorseful approach to this case. So let's take a listen.
Ms. Richardson, you get the last word in all of this. Is there anything that you want to tell me before I impose a sentence?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would do anything and above that you ask, and I understand. And I just wanted to say how sorry I was. I can sometimes be selfish, but I would like to think that I've become better in the knowledge that I've upset everyone and hurt so many people with what I've done. And I'm forever sorry, and I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry, and I understand. And thank you.
All right, so I would imagine David Bruno, she's going to go into court, say something very similar. She's going to talk about all the things she's done since that time. Moving beyond some of these sort of procedural things, you mentioned them, Tammy mentioned them, may not be enough time having passed since her probation. Maybe there's not enough of a record of her acting correctly or showing remorse for the judge to decide to do this. But at some point, I would think she'd be a good candidate for that. And interestingly, she could still become an attorney at that point.
Yeah, also, we also got a little hint from the court on this issue already. She was sentenced to 3 years community control, which is also known as probation. And she was terminated early on the probation after 14 months. And at that particular proceeding, the court is quoted on saying, "There's no reason to invest any time or resources of my probation department into supervising you." So that's from that same court that's going to have to make this decision. It gives us a little insight into the court as to the remorse that this defendant has seen and the court's idea as to whether or not this is a danger to the community.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's showing that during that 14 months, she has probably been an exemplary, I don't want to call it inmate, but ward of the state in some way as they followed her through probation. She probably was doing everything right. And they said, look, we don't want to waste any more time or money trying to follow you. We think you got it and you're headed in the right direction. And again, at the end of the day, we all wish her the best and hope that things work out well for her. We'll continue to follow this one.
I just wanted to say how sorry I was. I can sometimes be selfish, but I would like to think that I've become better in the knowledge that I've upset everyone and hurt so many people with what I've done. And I'm forever sorry, and I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry.
County teen accused of killing and burying her newborn.
Prosecutors claim that Richardson's doctors begged her not to harm the baby.
Prosecutors say it was May 6th or 7th when Richardson gave birth to her baby girl, caused her death, burned her body, and then buried her in the backyard.
The baby's remains were not discovered until July 14th after investigators received a tip from a doctor. Fornshell says no one else has been charged in this case. And as for the father of the baby,
I'm not going to play a game of Maury Povich up here in front of you.
The allegations in this case were horrific. Especially the first time I read it, she killed a newborn baby, burned the baby, and buried her in her backyard. I mean, outrageous allegations. She became public enemy number one, Brooke Schuyler Richardson. But then the trial happened on court TV. Things changed a little bit. Let's take a look.
I'm literally speechless with how happy I am. My belly is back, OMG, and I'm never, ever, ever, ever letting it get like this again. Those are the words that Brooke Richardson texted to her mother just hours after she murdered her infant daughter in the middle of the night and buried her lifeless body in the dirt behind their home.
If you could tell the jury one thing about Schuyler before you get off the stand, what would it be?
She would never hurt another living being, let alone a baby.
Women who kill their children, we've read about it, we've heard about it, throw them in dumpsters. They try to distance themselves from the body. Schuyler named her child. She put her in a grave site that she could see from her bedroom window. We kept her close, put flowers on her grave, and marked the grave.
Based upon your autopsy of baby Richardson, do you have an opinion within a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to the cause of baby Richardson's death?
Yes. Homicidal violence of undetermined etiology.
With regard to count one, we, the jury in the above captioned case, find the defendant, Brooke Schuyler Richardson, not guilty of the offense of aggravated murder, not guilty of the offense of involuntary manslaughter. We, the jury, find the defendant, Brooke Schuyler Richardson, not guilty of child endangerment, find the defendant, Brooke Schuyler Richardson, guilty of the offense of abuse of a corpse.
It was such a dramatic moment, and no one knew how this thing was going to turn out. But in the end, she was found not guilty of the most important charges, the ones dealing with homicide. Julie Grant joins us now. Julie, you know, seeing that footage again reminds me of what that moment was like. And really, it was a story for me. And people accuse me of everyone's guilty, everyone's... No. I look at the case, the evidence, and in this one, I had problems with some of the things that the prosecution did.
I'm with you, Vinny. I did as well. And that's our job, to look at a case objectively and look at the arguments that both sides can make, the facts and the evidence that are favorable or unfavorable to either side. And I'm with you. We were both prosecutors, and so we certainly know how to think like prosecutors, right? And in my opinion here, these prosecutors overshot the mark. All along, just based on our research of the case prior to it even going, I kept thinking this sounds to me like an abuse of a corpse case. And as the evidence was put before the jury, that's ultimately what they decided. As the trial progressed, that's where the jury fell, that this was an abuse of a corpse, not a murder. A baby was not lit on fire, as was suggested in an interrogation video and a theory somewhat pursued by the prosecutors here. I mean, there were so many things that were just wrong with this, and evidence that factually was incorrect that made it into the case and kind of muddied up the waters.
Yeah, and you talk about lighting the baby on fire. That was the thing that made the huge headlines, and that's the one that got the public really, really angry with this young woman. And in the end, the confession to that was a false confession. It was 1,000% obvious to me, but it wasn't obvious to the investigator. And I know you spoke with her attorney, Charlie Ritkers, today, and he spoke about that. Let's take a listen.
What the government also knew is that in the second interrogation, the police officers, using the Reed interrogation technique, had Schuyler admit to burning a body of a fetus. And now they know that's not true. I mean, look, anyone with any slight bit of common sense and reasonableness knew that that was not true, that an infant's remains don't catch on fire like a stack of dry paper and sticks. Yet, they let that sit, not only before the trial, but throughout the trial, hoping that maybe the jury would think, and again, I'm speculating, but why else would you not correct the record when you know it's false? Maybe the jury would think that Schuyler actually tried to light the baby on fire with a lighter, but maybe there weren't flames, but she tried it because she said she tried it. And, you know, the scary thing is that sometimes that works. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the way in which I think a lawyer should conduct business, but that's the only explanation I have for why the government doubled down on something that we all know defies logic. We have things like documentaries, Making a Murderer, and a lot of articles and a huge movement by criminal defense lawyers across the country and the Ohio Innocence Project over the past decade or two about false confessions. Yet, a number of people find it very difficult to believe that someone who is smart, straight A student, going to college, in an interview or interrogation that is not necessarily threatening, would admit to something as heinous as that when it's not true. And the sad thing is that it does happen, and it happens every day. And in the large majority of cases, you don't have something like DNA to conclusively prove that an innocent person was wrongfully convicted because they falsely confessed.
Julie, that was the part that got me so angry, because that investigator, you know, who was part of this false confession, gets up there, wouldn't let it go. They wouldn't let it go. And to me, it undermined the credibility of their whole case.
Exactly, Vinny. You're exactly right. And I talked to attorney Charlie Ritkers about this exactly. It was something that never happened. And it seems like everyone in America who was watching this trial really got a lesson in the law, in criminal justice, and what can happen in interrogations. And we know that police are able to lie to suspects. And sometimes a lot of good comes from that. I'd probably say, more often than not, good comes from that, and information that's necessary is elicited. But here, and I'm sure you would agree with me, Vinny, where the problem lies is this information was elicited. They knew it was false. They knew it never happened. We had the anthropologist who went back on their opinion, at first saying the bones were burned, and then say, well, actually, no, they weren't. And then the state said, well, we're going to double down on this and introduce all this evidence in the case. You could see why that would make the defense team furious, and why they would take those facts and say, okay, we're going to use this to our advantage. And that's exactly what happened here. The jury wasn't buying it.
Yeah, and I understand. I mean, it was absurd. All right, let's move forward now. Brooke Schuyler Richardson, you asked Charlie Ritkers about what she's doing now.
Schuyler had been accepted at the University of Cincinnati, and then the pending case prohibited her from going down and living on campus. She reapplied after she was acquitted and convicted of a low-level nonviolent felony that I believe will be removed from her record in the near future. And the University of Cincinnati denied her second application to be admitted, which was a bummer for me. I'm a University of Cincinnati law graduate. My mom and dad are University of Cincinnati law graduates. I actually wrote a letter of recommendation to the undergraduate program for Schuyler, and believe that what she's been through makes her a better candidate, actually, not worse. But unfortunately, University of Cincinnati did not accept her a second time, and thankfully she is now at another local college and plans to complete her degree there and then move on to law school.
A lawyer, a future lawyer, Julie.
That's right, Vinny. That's what she wants to become. And it was after this trial that she really made that decision, and really feeling that emotional toll that it took, being the accused, knowing the countless hours her attorneys and the paralegals and all the staff in the law firm of Ritkers and Ritkers put in to help her through this case. And she worked for them while the trial was going on. And it was out of necessity. Charlie Ritkers told me that Schuyler had applied to numerous places and no one would give her a job. But they said, you know what, we'll give you one at our law office. And she did a great job. He told me that everyone there loves her. They love talking with her. They love giving her tasks so they can interact with her. And she stayed on board and is still doing a great job for them, and now has been accepted to a college in the area and will be going to school and hopefully pursuing law school thereafter.
Yeah, hopefully turning things around. I mean, I think we all agree what she did was a horrible thing. She's pregnant.
Yes.
I mean, that child could have been saved, but at the end of the day, not guilty for the homicide-related charges, and now a second chance. Former high school cheerleader Schuyler Richardson tonight is free from probation. Of course, you remember Court TV brought you gavel-to-gavel coverage last year of her murder trial in Ohio. She was sentenced to serve 3 years on probation after she was convicted on the bottom charge of the indictment, which was abuse of a corpse. She was acquitted of the most serious charges of aggravated murder, involuntary manslaughter, and child endangerment. Prosecutors argued that Schuyler Richardson hid her unwanted pregnancy, killed her baby, and buried the body in the backyard just days after her senior prom back in 2017. They say she did it so that she could get on with her, quote, perfect life. Well, Richardson maintained the baby was stillborn, but she did admit to burying the baby in her backyard. Now, after serving about 14 months of the 3-year probation sentence, Schuyler Richardson went to court this morning to explain her reasons for asking the court to terminate her probation. Let's take a listen.
I just want to make everything right again as much as I can, so I do apologize. And I never know if it's appropriate to reach out because I never know who wants to hear from me. But I am really sorry. I just want to be able to fulfill my educational goals, and with my probation being terminated, I just want to be able to go to law school one day, and so I can become a public defender. And so I was hoping I could get my probation terminated so I could continue to further those educational career goals. But again, I understand that it has not been a long amount of time. But I want to be able to contribute to society as much as I can and be able to prove that you made the right decision and giving me the opportunity to go back out into society. So again, I apologize to everyone that I've affected.
Law school. Law school. It's not the first time that this has happened. I've seen this in other cases where sometimes it's victims that have been motivated and sometimes it is defendants. All right, well, the judge granted Skylar Richardson's request. And joining me now to discuss what happened today and what it all means, Court TV special contributor Ashley Banfield. Wow.
Law school, I know. But you know what? I'm actually not surprised given what I learned about her recent education. She's been in college, and in the last 2 semesters, she's averaged a 3.8, but in the semester that was most recent, she's had a 4.0, all while she's also doing about 10 hours a week in a law firm working. She's also doing mental health, regular maintenance visits and counseling. And I gotta say, Vinny, for all the vitriol for those in the community who were outraged, first that the verdict was not guilty. I mean, she was facing aggravated manslaughter and life, right, behind bars. Instead, she was convicted instead of just this lowest charge, abuse of a corpse, and given this 3-year probationary sentence, which is called community control. Look at the reaction. I watched that, and that you can't fake that. That's not phony. That's a broken person. And so for all the community reaction out there that might be angry that they think Skylar is skating, isn't this what we're supposed to do? I mean, isn't this what the system is supposed to do? Aren't we supposed to see people rehabilitate, fix themselves up, and really want to do well in the community, stand in front of a judge with real tears, not crocodile fako tears, and apologize and say, I could do better. I know I need to do better. I want to do better. I want to be a public defender. And it's not like she wants to go into law to make a whole bunch of money. She wants to go into law to be a public defender, she said. I know there's people out there throwing peanuts at the TV saying, oh, you're such a sucker. Not always. I see a lot of this, and that's a reaction I don't normally see. And again, if this is fake, well, then she shouldn't go to law school. She should go straight to Hollywood because it's really, really good. So my point, Vinny, is that maybe this is the right decision where the judge today said, okay, I'll release you from the next little less than 2 years of community control because you came in here with the right stuff, right stories, right everything. I mean, do you disagree, Vinny? Do you have that?
No, because you have to be in the system. Like there used to be Fridays were sentencing days when I was a prosecutor, and it was one after the other. You walk in with a stack this high, and you'd look for people that were trying to do, and you're just reaching for some morsel of like normal, turn your life around kind of stuff. And anytime it would happen, the judge would celebrate it and try to motivate the person to do more. I mean, you don't get people coming in with a 4.0 on sentencing day or on a violation of probation or a motion to reconsider. It just doesn't happen. So this is like the outlier. So to me, it's the right call if you look at it in the context of every criminal defendant that comes in front of this judge.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot, right? And I know the crocodile fako tears when I get them. I know it. I can see it. And I know you can too. And I know our viewers can. They're no dummies. They know exactly what's up. And let's just remember, we're also dealing with a 21-year-old right now who was 16-ish, 17-ish when going through the whole series of events that led her to this moment, right? So we're not talking about some seasoned adult who orchestrated some crime because she was living a life of crime. She was a good kid, did a really bad thing, and maybe not as bad a thing as a lot of people believed she did, but she certainly is trying to fix it and be right by what the court has done for her. So listen, I wanted to find out a lot more about. I mean, she's really kind of mystifying to me. So I checked in with her attorney, Charlie Ritkers, and you've seen him. He was actually on Court TV yesterday doing analysis for us. He was in court with her. He stood by. He and his father at the law firm. She's working at their law firm as well. So he has some pretty good insight into this young lady. And I asked all the questions. Have a listen. Thank you for doing this, Charlie. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So Charlie, tell me, how is your client doing?
She's doing well. Skylar, from the beginning of the case, we talked about this, but she really does grieve silently. And, I've had a lot of conversations with her family, and they're still worried about her because I think she's still going through the grieving process from a tragic, horrible loss.
So she got good news. Obviously, being released from community control will change things profoundly with her. Explain how things will be different for her.
Sure. So when you're on community control, which is also known as probation, at least in Ohio, on a low-level felony, Skylar had to check in with her probation officer anytime she left the state of Ohio. There were certain rules and requirements of her that were very easy for her to keep. However, you do have a little bit of a cloud hanging over your head, knowing that you're on probation and that there's a suspended prison sentence. And it doesn't help a person, anyone, but certainly not a person who has an eating disorder and the added anxiety of the trial and probation hanging over her head. So this decision by the judge really gives her some closure. And also it starts the clock so that 3 years from today, she will be eligible to seal her record, which is also very, very important for Skylar.
And in that regard, how so? I heard her say in court she wants to pursue a law degree, maybe pursue a career as a public defender. Are these the reasons that she wants to seal the record, or are the reasons myriad? I mean, no one wants a record.
Correct. And I think specifically in Skylar's situation, she's in college, doing very, very well, which I think is not a surprise to anyone who knows her. And I think she will make an excellent attorney. And that is what she's determined she wants to do at this point in her life. And she wants to represent people who've been accused of crimes. And I think that she'll be a passionate advocate. Sealing her record will obviously get her closer to that goal.
What about the other part of the story that doesn't go away? The people who feel aggrieved. There's the community. Say what you will about how invested they are in the facts or the details or not, but there was a really large portion of the community outraged at this case. How will she navigate that going forward?
That's a good point. There, when you go through a high-profile case like this one, sadly, even after the jury verdict, which is jurors, as you know, are comprised of a cross-section of folks in the community who actually heard the evidence, and they were a few feet away from people on the witness stand. And I believe that there is a minority, a small group of people who might still have some disdain and hatred in their hearts about this case. But I also don't think that those folks watched and heard all of the evidence in the case. Skylar will have to navigate that carefully, and that is why she has remained, I think, close to home, because she has comfort in her very close circle and has not expanded that circle since this incident occurred.
How is life, at home and in and around her immediate community? Originally, it was so volatile. I mean, there were really egregious protests that went on pointedly towards her and very close to her personal circle. Has that abated?
The online, as you would imagine, the folks on social media, and again, we're not talking about a large number of people in the community, but there are some hate groups on social media that we've been made aware of by very friendly folks who agree with the verdict. In fact, I can't speak for mail or messaging that Skylar might receive directly, but for me personally, and this happens anytime you have a high-profile case, I can tell you that 9 out of 10 direct communications coming to our office or to my email inbox are positive. And my hope is that that is also indicative of how the community feels about this verdict.
Is her safety a concern? I mean, I know it's not as though she's under house arrest necessarily. She's able to get out of the house, but that will become more frequent, and her horizons may expand wider. Is there any concern about her safety, given that there are those people online and there are those people who are not online? They're just out and about.
That's true. Today, I thankfully the Warren County Sheriff's deputies had a little bit of increased security, and it was really at our request because a few people had tipped us off to some comments online that were fairly threatening. And the same groups and where these comments had been posted were talking about how they were going to be protesting at the courthouse today. There wasn't a single person at the courthouse today protesting. So I hope that that is a good sign that this can be put to rest and give everybody involved closure.
There were some comments made. I think the Associated Press quoted Tracy Johnson, who was the baby's paternal grandmother, and I'll use their words. I don't think her serving the 3 years probation is too much to ask. And then she went on to say that she doesn't feel that Skylar has shown much remorse. What does Skylar have to say to Ms. Johnson and that side of the family?
We didn't know what Ms. Johnson was going to say today, and there was nothing rehearsed about what Skylar said when Judge Oda asked her why she should be released from probation. And in court today, Skylar looked at Ms. Johnson because part of what she had said, Ms. Johnson, is that Skylar had never reached out to them or their side of the family. And Skylar said today, live and spontaneously, that she doesn't reach out to some people because she doesn't know if that communication is wanted. And from the statements that Ms. Johnson had made previously, I could tell you that my advice to Skylar would have been not to reach out. But then in court, just as Skylar did immediately after the verdict at the sentencing, she was extremely apologetic, actually physically crying, tears rolling down her eyes. And I can tell you from speaking with some of her mental health professionals and her family that this is just a tragedy that honestly Skylar will never forget, and it will impact her for the rest of her life.
I mean, I think that it goes without saying, something this monumental happening in a young teenager's life. And that reminds me of the early offings of this story, Charlie, where a big part of Skylar's case was that she had been suffering from an eating disorder and maybe some mental illness at the beginning of all this, and compound that with everything she's gone through since. I know that your court records indicated that she's continuing, mental health therapy, but how is she doing in that respect?
I think fairly well. In fact, she and I had a conversation today after court about that issue. And it was actually prompted by my mother. Skylar works at her law firm. And my mom saw her yesterday and she said, I'm worried about Skylar. I'm worried about her weight. And so she and I had a conversation today with my father. And she said, her potassium levels are up. She's doing continued and frequent therapy with someone who understands eating disorders and someone who Skylar trusts. And that professional, I think, is making a lot of inroads with her. And Skylar has an excellent understanding, in my opinion, of the disorder and the disease that she suffers from. And from the beginning of this, but certainly after the verdict, she's taken a lot of strides to make sure that she gets it under control, so that doesn't impact her and her dream to become an attorney and defend those folks who have been accused of crimes.
Does she want to become mother at any point in the near future?
That's a question I've not asked her, and it's something that she's not voluntarily brought up to me, so I don't know.
And what about just the idea of a 21-year-old woman, in the prime of her life, dating again? Is she at least open to the idea? Is she dating anybody currently?
Not to my knowledge, but again, that's not a conversation that I would have with her. So it's possible. I just don't know.
So where does it go from here? Do you continue your work with her? Have you bonded a friendship, or is it really well you're on your own, and the best of luck to you? How did you leave it?
Skylar still works at the firm, and she has a place at her firm for as long as she wants. Everyone in the firm loves her like family. She's part of the women party for the holidays, and they give each other gifts. And I can tell you from text messaging and emails from a lot of the paralegals and attorneys at the firm that their heart went out to Skylar. They're happy that she has closure now, somewhat, at least in the legal regard. And we're a family, the firm, and we'll always be there for her, and she'll always have a position at the firm if she wants it. I believe that her opportunities now might be greater because she's no longer on probation, because she had applied at some other locations and had been turned down those job opportunities.
Well, I'm very appreciative of you taking the time to talk to us about this. I think that overall this is such a tragic case on so many fronts. It's great that you were here for the clarity. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Ashley.
And Vinny, clearing that all up, actually cleaning up that record, and having it cleared after 3 years, she'd have to go through these next 3 years with no other charges, no other felonies, and keep doing what she's doing, and then the world's her oyster.
Yeah, hopefully, and that's what we want to see. Like you said before, Ashley. Thanks so much, Ashley. That was a fascinating insight, really, into the case that we all lived last year.
With regard to count one, we, the jury in the above captioned case, find the defendant, Brooke Skylar Richardson, not guilty of the offense of aggravated murder, and there appear to be 12 jury signatures affixed. Verdict form 2, involuntary manslaughter. We, the jury in the above captioned case, do hereby find the defendant, Brooke Skylar Richardson, not guilty of the offense of involuntary manslaughter. Count 3, child endangerment. We, the jury, find the defendant, Brooke Skylar Richardson, not guilty of child endangerment. It does say we further find the defendant did not cause serious physical harm to the alleged victim, but that finding is not necessary as a matter of law. Verdict form number 4, we, the jury in the above captioned case, find the defendant, Brooke Skylar Richardson, guilty of the offense of abuse of a corpse.
What a dramatic moment inside the courtroom there, as you saw the reaction from Skylar Richardson. And this was a case last year here on Court TV. And yeah, there was a guilty at the end, but it was kind of like a throw-in at the end, not really a big deal. I mean, the big deal were the first two. And it was not guilty, not guilty. They accused her of giving birth and then burning her baby. Remember this photo? This was the prom picture where she hid her pregnancy from her entire family, hid a birth inside the home from her family. Now, the defense argued that it was a stillborn child, and then she buried the child in the backyard. That's the conviction abuse of a corpse. But she was accused of giving birth to a live baby and burning the child. Wow. She did speak before sentencing when she was, after she was convicted. Let's listen to that.
Ms. Richardson, you get the last word in all of this. Is there anything that you want to tell me before I impose a sentence?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would do anything and above that you ask, and I understand. And I just wanted to say how sorry I was. I can sometimes be selfish, but I would like to think that I've become better in the knowledge that I've upset everyone and hurt so many people with what I've done. And I'm forever sorry, and I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry, and I understand. And thank you.
That was before she was sentenced. Let's listen to the sentence given to her by the judge.
I find that you are amenable to community control. It's a mandatory community control case. I'm going to place you on 3 years of basic supervision. I'm going to impose upon you the standard rules of community control, and I'm going to delegate to your officer the ability to make special or additional conditions as they see fit. I'm going to order as a term of your community control that you spend 7 days in the county jail. I'm going to credit you the 7 days that you have already done, which means that you are going to be going home today. Your stated prison term is going to be 12 months in prison. I'm not sending you to prison today, but if you violate the terms of community control, I can impose up to the maximum penalty in this case This includes an optional period of post-release control. If I send you to prison, the adult parole authority then has the option but not the requirement to supervise you for up to 3 years after your release. If they impose that supervision and you violate the terms, you can be returned to prison for up to 1/2 of my original sentence. Or if you violate by committing a new felony, then you can be returned to prison for up to 1 year or the amount of time you have left on post-release control. It's automatically whichever of those is the longer period. It's automatically consecutive to the sentence that you would receive for the new felony. None of this prison business matters to you at all as long as you don't violate the terms of community control.
And so far she hasn't, but she's going into court tomorrow to try to get released from community control / probation early. So, I mean, they've already won the war. Now they're going to try to win the war even more. Let me bring in Court TV special contributor Ashley Banfield. Ashley, this is a case I'll never forget, but let me start here. A little perspective on this and this young woman, right? She's got a whole life to live, right? What do you think that life will be like, having gone through what she's gone through, right? Accused of being a monster, an absolute monster, burning her baby, giving live birth and burning a newborn. She was found not guilty. And it turns out that whole confession, alleged confession, and there was no evidence that the child was even burned. So I got to put that aside for just a second because it got me really angry during the trial. But what do you think her life is going to be like? And how do you move on from something like this?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of details that, true crime fans who watched that trial on Court TV and who lived every moment of it will understand that there was something really uncomfortable about the fact that this young girl woman, I mean, she was 17, was being interrogated and just sort of agreed to, sure, I guess I tried to cremate the baby. And as it turned out, the forensic expert who said there were burned bones had to recant that and say, I was wrong. There's actually no evidence of burning. So why would a girl confess to that, to that suggestion? It really does give you an indication that, sometimes teenagers and frightened, young people can be manipulated and are very suggestible, because she ended up agreeing with what was being put in front of her. And then ultimately the forensics didn't prove that out, which probably was a big part of why the jury gave her a pass on the aggravated murder. I mean, look, she was facing life for aggravated murder, involuntary manslaughter, and child endangerment, as well as the abuse of a corpse. So you bet, Vinny, she skated on the war and, avoided life in prison and got a real cakewalk with abuse of a corpse and only 3 months or 3 years community control. But to your bigger question, what will life be like for her, whether or not she prevails tomorrow? Let's just be honest, like whether or not she gets this, relief from the next 2 years of community control. She's still got a big, long life. She's only 21. That's a good question. Depends on if she decides to stay near Lebanon, Cincinnati, right? Lebanon, Cincinnati suburb. It depends on if she gets married and changes her name because, Brooke Schuyler Richardson's kind of identifiable, but, Brooke Smith isn't. So there are a lot of things that I think she could do to shed the vestiges of this really awful legacy, right? Because there's nothing more awful about the story of a young girl who hides a pregnancy, gets dressed up in a prom dress. The child is stillborn or murdered, whatever side you believe. She was acquitted of that, and she just buries the corpse in the backyard, having never told anybody, allegedly. That's not something you shake easily, especially when you're found texting that same day, I got my belly back, woo, I'm thin again. So I don't know. And I'll be honest, Vinny, I think the bigger question is, how will the community feel? They've got these images like burned into their mind of a young girl who was on her way to prom, smiling away. I mean, clearly pregnant, but hiding this from everyone. How will the community feel? There were a lot of really angry people. I mean, their home, the Richardson's home was picketed, and there were protests everywhere. There were people protesting the court. She was called a baby killer. I mean, it was awful. And there were people really angry that, she was acquitted. So I think if that same community now hears that the skate and the cakewalk that she got is going to be diminished, that could probably open some old wounds in the community.
This case, to me, the false confession got me angry because it was obviously a false confession. But during the course of the trial, the investigator he wouldn't let it go. He was still insisting that the child was burned, even though their expert said there's no evidence of it. And the only evidence of it came from that same expert. It's mind-boggling to me that the system. Now, the bottom line is that baby never had, should have had a chance to live if she had done the right thing and just told her mom, listen, I'm pregnant, or gone to the doctor, or do the things you're supposed to do. I mean, that baby should be alive. So,
Not everyone's convinced, though, by the way, of that. Not everyone's convinced that she never told her mom. Look, the other half of us, not you, but the women in the world, we were all 16, 17-year-old girls, and you don't just typically head off to the OBGYN by yourself. It's an unusual thing to do. Not saying it doesn't happen. It does, but not everybody was completely convinced that she hadn't told some people about this. But no matter what, if she had, no one was talking.
Now, if the mom was told, right, and that means that the mom was told and did nothing for her grandchild, that, to me, I can't imagine that either. I mean, anything's possible. We see it every day here on Court TV, but I just could not imagine that. Do you think justice was served in this case?
Listen, that's really hard. It depends on what side, of the court you were sitting on, right? And I think that for a lot of the people in the community, they feel it wasn't served. They feel like that this family was very privileged and that Brooke was very privileged and she was given, a privileged form of justice that lots of other people in this world may not have received if they didn't have the money or the white skin color, some would say as well. So, and if you're Brooke, look, this was a good kid, right? She was a cheerleader. She was going off to a college. She wasn't a criminal. She wasn't a bad kid. She wasn't sort of set out to ruin the world around her for her own good. So it just depends on what side you sit on because, clearly it takes two to make a baby, and whoever the other part of that wasn't helping out here, right? And didn't face any of the same responsibilities or charges and didn't do the same acts clearly as well. But when you're left alone at that age, in a world where that's just a very frightening proposition, that's a very scary reality as well. So if it happened the way Brooke said it happened, then yeah, I guess justice was served. If it didn't happen the way Brooke said it happened, then justice wasn't served. I'm sorry that's unsatisfying, but I think in this case, there's a lot of dissatisfaction.
Yeah, it's not. It was a sad case. It was sad all around because at the end of the day, there was a child who didn't have a chance.
Hey, Vinny, do you want to know something weird? I had to kind of think back on my career here, but I started covering, general news back in 1988. So 33 years. I know, I don't look it. But one of the first stories I covered back in Edmonton, Canada, was about a young girl, and I think she was 16 or 15, who hid her pregnancy and lived at home, had the baby, and dropped it off on a doorstep in her community. And then about a year or two later, it happened again. And she got pregnant again and had a full-term pregnancy in her home, hiding it from her parents and everyone around her, and then ultimately went to a hotel room, I believe, or an apartment with her boyfriend and delivered that baby and then tossed it in a garbage can. So she was being tried for the second one when the details of the first one came out. And I remember just being so floored, wondering, is this going to be my career? Is this the kind of stuff that's normal in the courts? And as it turned out, there were a couple more along the way. So Brooke's not the first rodeo that I've been to with this kind of a story. And it does tell me that, young girls go into absolute paralysis when this kind of thing happens to them. And not everybody has the education and the support to help them through it.